From beer to Bratwurst, Germans answer your questions about their country. You guys have got a stereotype about being efficient. Do you see the rest of the world as ineffective? No, not really, although I do think that we value punctuality and thoroughness, but then again, who doesn't? Alright, so here's a playbook of how this video is going to go. You'll notice that most of these are short questions from foreigners, with answers from actual Germans, mostly the same one MVP guy writing in. I'm going to refrain from my impersonation of a German accent, as I feel that would get very old very quickly for all of us across these many answers. Let's not obscure the educational info we're getting here. Maybe I will do it occasionally if I feel that the answer is comical in nature, or if it's someone answering who isn't that one guy I mentioned, or just if there's a lot of answers and I need to differentiate between voices. Big thank you to username tbook2304 for writing so many answers. I heard your internet connection there is usually pretty trash. Is that true? Yeah, it's slow and expensive. And never talk about Wi-Fi on ice. What the hell is up with Bavaria? Like, did you guys kidnap them? They seem like they never wanted to be German. How come they're part of Germany in the first place? God, let me tell you, even we don't know what's up with them. Okay, as a Bavarian, we don't know how we ended up in Germany either. Eventually, we'll pull a Bavexit and create the People's Republic of the Alps together with Austria, since they have the only bearable dialect and slang to our ears out of all the other German-speaking regions. This was a jovial jab at the fact that the entire region around the Alps, despite consisting of 4 entirely different countries, has more in common than some German states that are right next to each other. Ha! Most people wouldn't notice if they crossed the border from here to the south. Huh. As someone who has Flemish or Dutch as their native language, I understand a ton of German even without ever really learning it. I can't speak it though. Do you understand as much of the Dutch language as we do of yours, Germans? I can actually get the gist of written Dutch, yes. Spoken is impossible, same way as it is for you. How the frick do you learn the grammatical genders in your language? I don't know. I feel sorry for anyone learning German grammar. David Hasselhoff. Why? Well, he tore down the Berlin Wall with the power of his voice. I mean, he's a living meme, that's it. Why is it common for office workers to smoke so much? Like when I was walking around there, everyone was out smoking 3 or 4 times an hour. I think many workers want to take advantage of the Raucherpausen, a break for you to smoke. Where I worked, if you don't smoke, you don't have a longer break to make up for it. So maybe that's why. Any thoughts on Rammstein? Are Germans as infatuated with them as the rest of the world is? A lot of Germans love Rammstein, yes. Hey, could you send over some Kinder Eggs? Not the Joy ones. I want the real crap. I still don't understand why they're banned in America, but you can buy rifles at your grocery stores. Why do many of you still have 90s haircuts? As a German, not even I know why. Can you understand Swiss German? Even just a little? I understand Swiss people speaking German, but Swiss German is a whole other level of insanity. Do you have a stereotype about you that isn't true? I sometimes see that other people think our train system is efficient and always punctual, but the opposite is actually the reality. Also, I think we're quite funny and have a great sense of humor against popular belief. And a lot of people think we wear traditional lederhosen and drindle all the time, which isn't true. Whenever someone trashes German humor, the best response is, German humor is no laughing matter. What's the name of that incredibly tasty white sausage that's sold everywhere? The sausage could be Weisswurst? I've heard stories of tourists doing Third Reich salutes, also known as Elon Musk salutes, in Germany, as a joke, and immediately getting deported. Is there truth to this no-tolerance policy of the symbols of that regime? Yes, the symbols of the Third Reich are forbidden, and it's definitely stupid to do that salute in front of a police officer or something similar. It will cost you a bit of money or worse. Otherwise, there's also a bunch of people who glorify the symbols and never really get into trouble, and would think that it's funny. Arrested, maybe, for a short time. It's illegal and there is a fine. Also, Germans really don't think this is funny. Most of them won't even understand how you could have gotten to the idea that this might be a funny thing to do. Still, so many people in and outside of Germany do it. In mockery? Honestly, I don't understand it. Really bad taste, in my opinion. I think it's an abstraction and distance thing. Like, you know how after a certain point an evil plan becomes over the top to the point of absurdity and hilarious? Most of us foreigners are more distant from the thing, and it's unfathomable. To the point of seeming like supervillain syndrome level plans. It doesn't help that the ideology is bonkers. But in Germany it's like, dude, that's not funny. There was really a guy who did that, and it's not just something you saw on TV or in a book. Like people hamming it up by quoting Emperor Palpatine as funny because there wasn't a planet full of people who were actually murdered. It's one of the reasons visiting the camps is powerful. It removes a level of abstraction and distance, even for people who intellectually understand that it was real. The people doing the Third Reich salutes are being wacky Indiana Jones villains who are evil to the point of comic absurdity. It's also part of the legacy of other countries struggling to conceptualize the Third Reich. Briefly, our culture was like, we're kind of racists too, guys. Also, our industrialists make a lot of money working with the Third Reich. And that guy Milgram did his test showing most people will follow orders. Maybe we… Actually, nope. Inherently evil, different scale, don't want to hear it. Those guys had no redeeming qualities and are comic two-dimensional supervillains now, and that's how we want all of our TV shows and movies to show them. You see, that shift in the understanding and portrayal of the lead-up to the Third Reich opened up the way for others to treat them like a joke. In Germany, the human dynamic of the Third Reich and their motivations and fears is more covered because they have to be. Elsewhere, it's like, we don't want to examine that too closely because it might mean we have to change. Germany had no choice but to change. The rest of us had the choice to be like, the Third Reich weren't people, they're Indiana Jones villains who kick puppies and say things like, curses, and swish their cloaks as they exit the room. And the latter is basically funny. It's funny to be so ridiculously two-dimensionally evil and funny to pretend to be. The problem is tying the concept of an unrealistic, absurd caricature of evil into a real-world atrocity, because there's an inherent disconnect. It's also one of the reasons the rise of the far right in other countries took so long to notice, because if you call someone a fascist or the German N-word, it's a punch below the belt and you sound ridiculous. It'd be like saying, guys, he's a literal Sith Lord. And people are going, you're ridiculous. Of course he's not a literal Sith Lord. He's not twirling his mustache and cackling. It took a while for people to be like, oh, crap, you're right, those guys are evil. I was confused because they seemed like normal people. They didn't go on megalomaniacal rants about power while holding a spy hostage while wearing a silly uniform telling me their immigration plan, so I didn't notice. Well, that's the biggest question on a lot of our viewers' minds answered. Fascinating breakdown of the mentality in Germany, with a good analysis of why it's hard to talk about fascism elsewhere. I'm from Austria, and I just want to ask what your view on your southern neighbor is. I personally really like our neighbor. I went skiing in Austria, and every Austrian I've met was polite and really friendly. I think Austria is awesome, but maybe that's because I'm biased. I'm Bavarian. Yeah, I have a question. Schnitzel, please. Yeah, schnitzel is amazing. Do you speak a local German dialect in addition to formal German? It depends on where and how you grew up. I can speak the dialect of my grandmother and mother when I'm in the regions, but not voluntarily because I moved away as a child. A friend of mine always says his dialect is horrible because he learned it from his family, but grew up in another region. It's not taught in school, with one exception, which is Platt. That's not a dialect, albeit often referred to as such. It's actually its own language, and in newer times, conversation efforts are being made, by making it optional in schools, for example. Are unexploded bombs from World War II a big problem? Actually, yes. Often we hear that lost bombs have been found in cities and they have to evacuate the areas to remove it. That happens more than people think here. Not a question, but the way they pronounce every word, I love it. From an outside ear, it's so unique and cool, if I can say so. Oh, that's good to hear. Most of the time, everyone thinks we just sound angry. Germans are revered for their love of beer, but I want to hear it from the source. What's the best German beer? To add, if it's not already the best, what's the most popular? That's a dangerous question to ask, depending on where you are. People have very strong opinions on their beer, but a lot of them stay true to the ones that are locally produced, so I can't really say what's the best in general, but I like Erdinger and Paulaner. Ha! We found the Bavarian. I'm partial to Augustiner, Tegernsee, and Chiemseer. I do like Paulaner and despise Hofbrau. Löwenbrau is also tolerable. Then there's Potts Landbier, which is from Olde, not far from Munster. Okay, I've read all of the other answers and I've learned some great stuff. I wish our USA educational system was as heavy-handed about the atrocities during World War II as yours is. That being said, here's my question. The Germans answering these questions are hilarious, and yet I don't speak German. Is there a place where I can find German humor in English? Why do you have die, das, and der? You've probably lowered my grade by 1 or 2 letters. Huh. Yeah, sorry, our grammar is really weird and I applaud you for trying to learn it. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Do you hate British people? No, but there's a stereotype of thinking you drink a lot. Is that actually true? It depends on your definition, to be honest. We like to think of ourselves as party animals, but the level of casual beer drinking I've seen in Germany just left me stunned in awe and admiration.
Do you guys really have free education just for, everyone?
Yes, we have. For university, we have to pay a bit for every semester though, depends on what you're studying. That can be from €150 to €400 in my experience. But we get free train tickets for the semester for that money, amongst other stuff.
Do you have any dead relatives that fought for the Axis in the war?
Well, he didn't die in the war, but my great-grandfather fought in Finland, got dropped off near Würzburg and walked 60 kilometers home. Also, my grandfather, his son-in-law, born in 1930, was just under the age when kids got drafted. Everybody older than him in our village went to fight. It shows me that people fighting a war can also have a backstory. So maybe the Kraut that the British soldier killed wasn't a Third Reich enthusiast, but actually Franz, the carpenter, or Hans, the farmer. Wars are just useless. Another story from my village is about a man that my mother described as the nicest man she's ever known. To everybody, old and young people, no matter where they're from. A few years after he died and she got older, she was told that he was actually an SS member. So, Thomas Anders and Dieter Bohlen, aka Modern Talking, are they considered an iconic part of German culture, or is it just some old stupid pop singers from the 90s? If it wasn't for a few scripted casting shows in which Dieter Bohlen is a member of the jury, nobody would even know that they existed.
What's a good recipe for schnitzel?
Use a tenderizer to beat the meat. Well, that sounds wrong. Then put it into a plate full of flour, then into another plate full of beaten eggs, and finally put it onto a plate with breadcrumbs. Then you can fry it in a pan and eat it, maybe with some lemon juice. Well, that's the way I remember it.
Do you notice your accent when you speak English? Do you actually eat spätzle?
I think it depends. We learn English pretty early now in school, so I think our pronunciation is getting better. But a lot of Germans have a problem with the TH sound. And yes, spätzle are amazing, especially if Oma made them. American here who lived in Germany. There's two kinds of German English speakers. The mad doctor stereotype and the "holy crap, you're not actually from Germany, are you?" sort. The second one blew my mind. Their American accents are spot-on, native perfect. I've worked with lots of different people from all over the world who learned English to come to the US, and while many of them are frankly better speakers than most native English speakers, because they had to actually rigorously learn the language instead of just sort of inheriting it, virtually none of them truly landed the accent. Only Germans have done that so far, and some of the Nordics as well.
Why do a lot of you get drunk at 7 in the morning?
Alcohol is very prominent in our culture. We're proud of our beer, and our drinking age starts at 14. You can drink beer and wine with your parents or a guardian watching, so drinking any time during the day is quite common.
It's not that widespread. Apart from serious alcoholism, there aren't many occasions people would drink in the morning.
A beer or three after work, sure. But in the morning it's either carnival, people are still drinking from the night before, or it's a Berlin techno party. We're not getting drunk at 7 in the morning. We're getting drunk at 11 in the evening, and we're still drunk at 7. That's the difference.
What's the most common reaction you get when you tell someone that you're German?
On the internet, and especially in online video games, they'll make Third Reich jokes, even though that reaction is decreasing. In real life, people just say, "Oh, okay." To what extent do your older relatives talk about the Second World War or life during the East Communist era? Is there a taboo around discussing it? And on a lighter note, what the F is up with you guys and water? Nobody drinks the perfectly clean, drinkable tap water, and everyone insists on drinking fizzy water, i.e. the ghastliest, least refreshing beverage known to man. We demand answers.
My grandparents talk about the war all the time, and I actually love hearing about their stories. Lots of older people I've met like to talk about what happened in my experience, so there's no taboo. And I can't understand the hype about sparkling water either. I love plain old tap water, but everyone else prefers sparkling by a long shot.
The narrator is actually on Team Sparkling Water these days. I used to hate it, but then I accidentally bought bottles of sparkling water enough times that I forced myself to drink it, and then, I don't know, something clicked. Now I find it way more refreshing. Something about it perks me up. Living in Europe does strange things to a person. Oh, and here's another answer about the war thing. I'm from West Germany. My grandmother was a child during the war, so from here we only got funny little stories like the GIs giving out chocolate, or during bombing nights when they fled into the woods and she'd rather pack a box full of cookies than clothes. My great-uncle was more or less a child soldier and didn't want to talk about it. Ever. My partner is from East Germany. Most people under 40 are just happy the country collapsed and that we're one country again. As ages go up, you'll find more and more people telling you that everything was easier and better back when East Germany existed.
Mostly the ones with that opinion couldn't keep up with modern technology and made themselves useless on the job market. I'm learning German since 2 months just because a friend said I couldn't, but is the trouble worth it? Our grammar is really hard, so I applaud you for trying. It's totally possible to learn it well enough to hold a conversation in that time frame, I'd say, but it's kind of hard. Good luck. This is about food. Do you know what Stirrum is? My grandfather used to make it for breakfast, and he had to learn to make it while in Germany during World War II from an SS officer. Okay, I'm a German and I had to Google what it is. It seems like we just have a different name for it, which is Kaiserschmarrn. A scrambled pancake, basically. How many Germans actually go to Oktoberfest? I think most German people think it's overcrowded and overrated, so I'd say mostly tourists visit. Wo befindet sich die Bibliothek? Dritter Stock, 5. Tür links. What are your favorite 3 dishes your Mutter or Oma made? Königsberger Klopse, or meatballs simmered in a lightly tangy caper cream and broth sauce with potatoes. Kaiserschmarrn, or mashed up pancakes, it's amazing with some fruit. And the typical Sonntagsessen, Sunday dinner, with Spätzle, Knödel, Braten and sauerkraut are amongst my favorite, I'd say. I am an avid weightlifter, and I admire your country's value of strength and fitness. Is powerlifting and fitness as big and valued in your country as I've researched? I've learned a lot from German weightlifting methods. In my circle of friends, fitness is often discussed and we go to the gym a lot, so it's pretty big, I'd say. What do you think of the movie Jojo Rabbit, a comedy about World War II from the perspective of a 10-year-old indoctrinated youth? I thought it was very funny and I had a great time watching it. Its more tragic elements do a good job of not trivializing the issue, especially when focusing on Jewish issues, which are more within the writer's expertise. On the other hand, I think we are used to harder, more in-depth satire of the Third Reich over here, so that part was actually pretty tame. Sprichst du Deutsch? Ja. What would you classify as German comfort food? Like in America we have fried chicken and macaroni and cheese. Something you make for the family and will absolutely warrant about 3 to 5 slaps on the table from its goodness, but not something that could be eaten every day. Spätzle or egg noodles with creamy sauce, cheese and caramelized onions, Rouladen, think slices of beef that are rolled and filled with mustard, onions and pickles, Knödel, like dumplings, and Kartoffelpuffer, similar to hash browns I think. Those are amongst my favorite comfort foods. Not really a question, but last year I went to Trier on a Sunday. The city was basically closed except for the Port Nigra and the McDonald's. Just beyond the Karl Marx statue, there was a little side road. No cars, no nothing coming at all, from any direction. Little old German Oma was there waiting for the light to turn green, patiently watching the light. Definitely a, yep, I'm in Germany moment. Also, Trier has a place called the Booty Club, and now that I Google it, it's closed forever and it's heartbreaking. Wait, I could ask any question I want? Oh god, and now I can't think of anything. I had a bunch of things I wanted to ask before, and now I can't remember. How's your day going? Oh, pretty great, how about you? Serious question. What do Germans think of their country's past events? Is it just a part of history you try to forget, or do people actually feel ashamed? Are the events taught in schools, and to what degree? It's a big part of our schools, and it's our job to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. It's taught extensively in school, and most students visit a KZ with their school at one point. What speed do you actually go on at that one stretch of the Autobahn that doesn't have a speed limit? All of the lanes on the Autobahn don't have a speed limit, but there's a rule that you can't pass someone on the right, meaning you can't drive faster on the right lane than someone on the left. That means the far left lane is the fastest and people drive anywhere from 130 km per hour to however fast their cars can go. Why are your beers and sausages so much better? Long history of making them, I guess. I'll go to the local German cultural center for their Oktoberfest, and when I get food, a quarter of the plate is sauerkraut. What's the proper way to eat it? Straight up or combined with a bit of Wurst? The only other way I've seen it used is on hot dogs at a baseball park. When I was 4, my sister and I painted some rocks real pretty-like and tried to sell them. Not one of you Germans bought them. Why didn't you buy the pretty painted rocks that us weird little English kids were trying to sell you? Well, you probably tried selling them without a merchant's license, or at least the Kleingewerbeanmeldung. We are not supporting the black market here. Why did Germans eat French fries with mayo instead of ketchup? Wait, other people don't do that? It's just the way we eat fries. Everyone does that over here. If I wanted to travel to Germany, what's the best city or town or national park to visit outside of Berlin? Leipzig is kind of close to Berlin, and depending on what you're looking for, it's really worth your time. What was the dumbest
$1,000,000 tech idea that someone ever proposed to you. Someone tried to sell a friend a membership to the new internet. She asked me to sit in and listen to the sales guy's pitch. At the time, I was running a web hosting business along with managing a smaller dial-up ISP's networking infrastructure. The new internet was going to be built new from the ground up. All new infrastructure, but without all the stuff that makes the internet bad. The sales guy couldn't really explain how that was going to work. For only $50, my friend would get a lifetime membership. Members of the new internet could surf the old internet and enter information about old internet web pages into a form on the new internet about those old internet pages. Then the new internet could suggest pages on the old internet when members of the new internet did searches about them. The members of the new internet would get paid for entering this information on the new internet's system. So, after a while, new internet's members would start making money and recover their membership fee. Any proposal that involves description along the lines of members would start making money and recover their membership fees should immediately set off about a dozen alarm bells, no matter what it's about.
So it's Wikipedia, but as a pyramid scheme?
My uncle suggested I create a type of digital map that could direct you places and help you get from point A to point B. He suggested this 3 weeks ago. Original post from 2019.
My favorite but dumbest was Chipotle Date, which would match you with people with similar or compatible Chipotle orders.
I mean, this has potential.
It does because all of the cute boys are at Chipotle.
I think it's so dumb that it actually goes full circle into genius territory. All I see is untapped potential. I mean, it's so off the wall that I guarantee it will become a trending meme, and from there you'll see profits rise exponentially. From there you could branch off into other cuisines and even develop a sharing platform for the matched couples to share and rate Chipotle restaurants. From there, you could even do endorsements and perhaps even come out with your own brand of Chipotle. At that point, you're tapping into the food industry, and then the sky's the limit. Yeah, I could see this as a weird viral marketing thing for Chipotle, but not as a serious dating app. Have an opt-in for when people make online orders for single items, i.e. need a Chipotle date. Then it matches with others. It would get free publicity on the news programs, social media, etc. as something wacky. Then it quietly goes away in about a month when the gimmick fades. I mean, a lot of really stupid ideas, if done in a public enough light, can actually see an uptick in business for the entity in question, I guess. As an example of any publicity being good publicity, I'm now craving burritos because I just said the word Chipotle about 6 times. My family has a technology business, and when my mum started to learn to make apps to support the product, she made a test app first. The whole app was just one search bar that you could type any word into and it would do nothing, unless you searched loser and then it would pop up with a picture of me from middle school with a bad sunburn and braces. Thanks, Mum.
To be fair, you could charge 50 cents for it and make a few $100 off curious idiots today.
A friend of mine wanted me to make an app that turned your phone screen into a mirror. Not a front-facing camera, not just blacking the screen, but a literal mirror. He couldn't grasp why this wasn't possible. Also, any kind of new social media app that they can think of can be made by one person in an hour, apparently. Any attempt to create another social media app, knockoffs of popular games like the plethora of Temple Run games, an app for a smartwatch that will run in the background and periodically meow. I couldn't count the number of people I've seen who think they've come up with a brilliant new app or social media platform that will earn them the big bucks. These people tend to be in their late 40s to early 50s, around the age when thoughts of retirement and nest eggs start kicking in. It's always difficult to sit them down, look them in the eye and explain in very kind terms that their idea is stupid and they shouldn't waste their money. I will admit that part of me enjoys that, though.
I want, insert social media app, only with, insert extra function. I don't think people think those things through.
Google. Fricking Google failed tremendously at creating a social networking platform. Granted, every single thing they did was as wrong as it possibly could have been, but do these spontaneous idiots honestly think they could do better? Okay, actually, don't ask that as a question, because the kind of person who thinks like this definitely thinks they could do better. For our capstone project, various faculty around campus get to put in project proposals for us to choose from. The worst freaking proposal was a Magic 8-ball type of app, but instead of a Magic 8-ball, it was a psychic dog. It was supposed to scan your dog's paw and give some kind of 8-ball-esque answer to your question. The group that got stuck with that project, I felt so bad for them, repeatedly asking for changes the night before each deadline and getting upset when it didn't come out the way they wanted. Also, they wanted to charge money for this crap app as well. It wasn't even scanning it, it was more of an animated image that pretended to scan it and generated something random. But the point of the post was more towards how badly it was managed by the client during the development. I have a buddy who is a programmer and a while back just wanted to get used to making an iPhone app and uploading to the iTunes store so that he was familiar with the process for when he wanted to do a real app. As practice, he made an app that would randomly generate a name based on census data. More common names were more common. It made it on some website's list of top 10 lazy apps and a bunch of authors started buying it. Last I heard, he'd made about $20,000 on his stupid app he uploaded for practice. Ones I've been asked to make include an app that does your taxes for you after talking about a site that does it, an app to make X, Y, or Z noises, a website to take custom butcher orders. The reason this is dumb is that nobody in the shop would know how to run it except for me, and I was one of the butchers. As per your last point, I remember there was a local pizza place that wanted to do online orders and they ended up with a website that, on submit, made a phone call with a synthesized voice to actually place the order. That way the shop didn't need to change any of their workflow, didn't need to add a computer and check it regularly. The orders came in the same way they always had. I got mixed reviews on this one, so I'll add it to the list. Back when I was in a coding program, our final project was to propose an idea and have the group vote on it and build the app. My app idea was a Yelp-like app for finding public restrooms and leaving reviews on them. Some classmates said it was a smart idea, while others weren't so excited about it. As someone with Crohn's, please somebody make this. It would be useful if you're somewhere where they're hard to find, like downtown San Diego or Times Square now that Toys R Us is closed. But there's already Flush and Sitter Squat and a bunch of others. My family friend develops apps and I always loved her stories. My personal favorite was a green herb breathalyzer app for your iPhone. If you're blowing into your iPhone to see if you're high, you're high. It's pretty simple. Anything that starts with, "Oh, I have an idea, you build the whole thing and then we'll split the profit." There's been a dude on my local Craigslist for years offering up this amazing opportunity. If it's been years, why doesn't he just learn to code? Is it beneath him? At what point does someone like this gain some introspection and give up? Or do they just keep telling themselves that they're a genius and everyone else is dumb? I have questions. I had a friend who had an idea for YouTube, but better. He didn't know how it would be better. Also, he had no idea about domain names, hosting, VPS, maintaining a website, designing a website, or literally anything. After he explained it, I let him down as gently as I could. That is the stupidest freaking idea I've ever heard. Unsurprisingly, it seems that the vast majority of these million-dollar ideas came from people with no idea about the market, competition, maintenance, or basic processes of creating them. Mostly just telling their ideas to more qualified people and hoping it will make them rich without them having to lift a finger. True story, at a company I worked for, we had created an app that tracked each employee's time. Each employee would have to log in and click a button to clock in. We were approached by a manager of a department that wanted us to create an app that would allow the employee to log in and then click a button that would essentially click the one button the employee would have to click to clock in. Like, seriously, did you just ask us to build an application to click one button when it would be the exact same as using the other app? My head hurts after reading that. What possible purpose could an app like that even serve? To this day, a few ex-coworkers and I still talk about this. We have no idea exactly what they were thinking, but we've come up with a few theories. Of the few, we try to reason that the thought in their mind was not able to be translated into words, and the request we got was not really what they wanted. We think they wanted an app that would clock the employee in as soon as they logged in, but you can see where the logic would fail on this. Another thought was that they wanted something just for clocking in, but the software that was written that did the time management was specifically written into the main application for other purposes. Old boss runs a low-level IT company. He wanted me to develop a backup redundancy for military air traffic control software.
including designing our own hardware, all because I used to be a controller. No idea how to design, build, or test hardware, no concept of military systems, designs or contracts, federal regulations, military agreements, anything. No software development background. Basically, he had an idea with absolutely no way to implement and no idea where to start. Ultimately, he ditched that idea in favor of certifying small businesses as IDOWorkHereLady compliant, and got angry that I wouldn't just give him a checklist of things to check due to the litany of federal compliance requirements that were deemed too much work to review, learn, codify, and comply with. Trash. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. MileRile's delivery service. We'll go to restaurants and deliver food to your house, or go to the store and pick up your groceries. That was my pitch to an entrepreneurial class in 1998.
What a stupid idea. There's no way anyone could make money doing that.
Well, to be fair, almost none of the delivery or rideshare apps have generated a net profit. Well, it's not about generating a net profit, it's about endless rounds of raising capital and investors while drawing an astronomical salary. Then it's off to the next one. It's a lifestyle. I once had a friend who wanted me to urgently make a full-on sports betting app in 1 week. Like, talk about choosing beggars extraordinaire. He wanted one person to make a commercial betting app to go live in 1 week. Urgently. I could all but laugh in his face and tell him to go F off. Had a guy approach me with something similar. Wanted a web application that would allow him to manage his fantasy football league. Member logins, trades, everything. When I pointed out there were already plenty of websites that do this, he explained that they used a lot of custom rules so they don't work for his purposes. This was like a month before the season started. My compensation would be being able to play in their league for the year, for free, potentially earning me a couple of $100 if I won the championship. I was like, wow man, that seems like a great deal for the amount of time it would take me to complete. Unfortunately, I'm just super busy at home doing absolutely anything else. Sorry.
An app that you could make a list in that would live update to all of your devices, so that we can have a family shopping list,
said my mum in 2018. I told her that you could use Google Docs for that and showed her how, and she goes,
"But that's not for making shopping lists."
My sister-in-law thought that I should make a business using drones to make fake reindeer hoof prints on roofs and other evidence of Santa, and when I told her, yeah, no, that's not going to work, she said, well, you should make a program that does that with a drone and sell that.
Well, you can always sell it to North Korea. They would love to bring gifts to the rest of the world.
A local line cook wanted me to make this app as a side project. Open your refrigerator and take a picture with your smartphone. The app will give you all of the recipes that you can make with the stuff in your fridge. The app itself would be amazing, if it wasn't basically impossible to build. Yeah, I want this app that scans every product in a different environment each time. The lighting, scale, and the amount of products stacked behind each other shouldn't matter at all. It should be able to recognize every single type of food, no exceptions. Can you do that for me in a few months? Way too ambitious an idea, but an original one. I think it is possible in the future with the right AI though. There are already some frameworks for detecting objects through images, but those aren't even near perfect. Oh god, there's so many, but I'll just mention one type. Every company with more than 100 employees and a non-tech-savvy boss will at some point blow away 7 figures on a branded social app or website that's going to be the next Facebook or Twitter, where millions of potential customers will certainly want to hang out and… crickets. Yeah, you're going to shut that thing down in 6 months because it's too embarrassing that your big bet social community is a buggy, boring, blatantly sales-focused ghost town. Damn, I didn't know that some of that stuff actually went through. I'm imagining some boss messaging everyone on Facebook to use their better alternative. Surely by now there's been enough time that CEOs aren't still getting these daft idea… Oh wait, who am I kidding? Of course they are. A contest/raffle app where people would be entered to win prizes, and somehow large companies, Coca-Cola for instance, would pay us a few cents for each ticket entered. He just needed someone to put together a code over a weekend and promised me 30% of the profits. He had no answer when I asked him why large companies would pay for us to run raffles through this app. I declined his offer.
I hope this qualifies because it was the most unrealistic request I've ever heard. A guy wanted to build a game engine that would incorporate all of the major game categories, FPS, RTS, Sim, Open World, RPG, and others, as building blocks and let a player create a custom one-off game session by picking which of the elements to combine into a game that would then be multiplayer over the internet. I'm not capable of imagining the code it would take to make something like this work. I can do a single-player version of this. It's called a box of Lego. Seriously, the idea is basically just Roblox. I had a Navy captain ask me to add a friend and foe column to the countries table. It took me about 2 seconds. Then he asked me to populate the fields. With what? Whether we're friend or foes with that country. Sir, I'm a contractor. That really seems like something that somebody with authority should provide. That sounds like relationship status, but it needs an "it's complicated" added to it, at least. Someone proposed to me an app for games to play while driving. They only had the vague concept and couldn't see why it could be a problem. Had a friend once who desperately tried to get me to create a search engine that would compete with Google. He's not the brightest crayon in the box. I mean, if you could build a search engine that could in fact compete with Google, that would probably be a pretty good moneymaker. Of course, that's in the same vein as, if I could fly like Superman, my morning commute would be a lot easier. I want you to make a simple mobile game like Call of Duty so I can host a tournament for my son's birthday. It's due next week. Can you do it for me as a favor, please? I was speechless. My mum wanted me to rebuild her work's website. I quoted $5,000 and got the, "Oh, we thought you'd do it for experience?" Yes, on top of my full-time job, I'll build you something for free. Someone suggested a drone delivery for food exclusively to people floating the river. Guess what we were doing when they proposed this? I'm sure the excellent cell phone coverage and birth of people who take their phones tubing with them make that service extremely profitable. Working in corporate America, we get people that think the company has the budget or engineering staff of Facebook or Google. At various points, I've been asked to build an app that replaced features of Chrome, Notepad++, SAP, and e-commerce sites with features and layouts based in ideas from Facebook rather than business applications. Google and Facebook have an army of engineers working on their products. We're not going to be replacing them on a shoestring budget, nor should we. An acquaintance once said he'd give me one of his ideas. I was curious how dumb it would be, so I asked. He said, "Like Facebook, but for sports." I said, "So, Facebook?" "Yeah, but for sports. You know, where teams can create pages and fans can talk about the team." "So, Facebook?" "No, for sports." This went on for about 5 minutes before I explained that teams and fans can already publish everything he wanted using Facebook. The same guy argued with me when I said that ideas are worthless without execution. Sure, if you have particular industry insider knowledge, your idea might have some value, but chances are we're talking about an entire business plan that generates value, not just Facebook for X. An app that would have access to your Gmail to read all of your orders, to check for price drops to get the difference. The user pays on the honor system afterwards, part of the savings. An app that would handle the writing of long tweets, but was also full-blown Twitter client. An app that would send an SMS when you lost signal. Lots of apps that just expect your app can do anything. Well, it just has iOS allowing us to see everything the user does in other apps. One of my classmates requested a copy of Google Chrome browser. Not like a copy-paste of Google Chrome, but a custom browser similar to Google Chrome. Dude, what was wrong with the real Google Chrome? When people wanted Internet Explorer but better, I would install Firefox and put an IE skin on it and change the icons. It looked like IE but ran like Firefox and actually loaded pages. My boss asked me to write a business plan for an Uber-like service for babysitters. At the time, there was a lot of issues with Uber drivers and violence and the unspeakable act, at least in the media. When I asked him how he planned to do background checks or informed him that usually parents want to do an interview before leaving their children, he wasn't pleased. Needless to say, the prospectus painted a grim future of our potential liabilities. Something like this exists. It's called Chime by Sitter City. You register to be essentially an on-call babysitter for certain times. An app that can hack everything, like in Watch Dogs.
Oh, there are a bunch of dumb apps in the store. Like seriously, there's apps that claim to make your phone into a scale and people download it. I was contracted to build a church website, and one of the deacons I worked with wanted every single page to have different music played when it came up. The site was going to be about 20 pages. I mean, honestly, the only irrational part is that people don't stay on a page too long usually. If you had the playlist of 20 songs in a randomized queue that played while people were on the site, that wouldn't be too bad. Audio isn't too common, but I'm sure old people would love it. Huh. I like to cook, but I don't usually follow recipes. I'll just throw stuff together. My boyfriend commented once that I should make an app to save my recipes in case I want to recreate them. While his heart was in the right place, I could also just use any number of note-taking apps if I wanted to do this. I did have ideas pop into my head from the suggestion on how to go overboard with features, selecting ingredients and measurements instead of having to type them in, tagging recipes with keywords and other things, but that would be a lot of work for something I wouldn't use. When I was in college, someone asked me to write a program that would send our trash into space from a trash can. This man was probably 55. I told him it sounded like a good idea. Oh lord, I had some trashy woman propose to me an app that would be like… I can't even explain it because it made no sense. But basically it involved signals on motorcycles and having your helmet also have signals on it, and somehow this involved a mobile app? Somehow, it was supposed to make riding a motorcycle safer because you had signals also on your helmet. Which is not entirely without merit, but it's not just an app. You'd need to develop a helmet that could do this, and a motorcycle that could do this, and at this point the app is not the star of the show here. Maybe the helmet and motorcycle just talk to each other and not go through your phone. But as it was proposed to me, you were meant to tap a button on your app when you wanted to signal, and I was like, that's not safer at all! My partner is a programmer, so I've got to witness a couple of stupid app pitches over the years. The one I remember quite well was some guy we met at a bar, a backpacker type, who had just arrived in town. His idea was to make an app for travelers that basically would let your family back home book some random person, I think other travelers in the area, to stage an intervention with you if your family back home felt like you needed or deserved it. Let overbearing mothers pay to have some rando do their overbearing business so you'd never get a rest while on vacation. I have two. The first one was pitched to me as a search engine or Google type of app that would help direct people to the correct website they were looking for if they mistyped or misspelled information, like Cisco Systems instead of Cisco Foods. When I pointed out that most search engines already had this functionality for free, they got upset. Second, more of a website proposal, whereby users would pay a large monthly subscription fee to view web cameras from around the world dedicated to only show a live feed of the sunset wherever it is on Earth. This was during the 2000 dot-com boom when tech money poured out of everyone's ears. What are some rules about life as a homeless person that would surprise you? When dumpster diving, if you find a pair of shoes or clothes that aren't your size, then you leave them neatly by the side of the dumpster for the next diver. Look out for each other and be good to each other. We're all struggling, so let's make it as good as we can for each other. When I was homeless, we paid for each other's food, clothes, and any other essentials if one was truly in need. Honestly, I think most people would be surprised by how much the poor take care of each other. My family was homeless for a few months after coming to the US. Other immigrants gave us food, clothing, babysitting, informal English lessons, job leads, and most importantly, advice and guidance. When my mother, working as a house cleaner, got a chance to clean out fridges, she shared with other families with small children first. My parents never ate anything before we ate. They only ate what we didn't. There were some thieves and general bad people, but everyone knew who they were. Shady employers were much worse and much harder to avoid. A lot of businesses just exist to scam the poor and needy. It's sickening. In happier news, I found some of the other families that helped us out on Facebook a few years ago, and everyone is doing pretty well for themselves. A kid I was friends with in the shelter is a professor at a well-known college, and my parents own a business. You don't beg on someone's corner if they're already there. My dad told me about the time he had to live homeless for a week for a class. He was working toward being a Catholic deacon. He has a lot of stories from it, but the one that stuck with me was his first night of being homeless. He woke up covered in layers of cardboard with a rock on top to hold it in place. The other homeless took care of him on his first night on the streets. When I was in college, my sociology professor gave us the option of being homeless in a big city for a weekend for extra credit. I wonder if anyone ever took him up on that particular assignment.
That seems like a dangerous assignment that can result in a lawsuit.
He'd probably make them sign a liability waiver. One of my college professors made us drive through an ethnic neighborhood, a ghetto, and map it out. We all had to sign a liability waiver exempting any danger, including injury and death. This was not an extra credit assignment either. We had no real choice. There's a certain level of tenure where apparently you can just send your students out into potentially dangerous situations for ships and giggles then. Huh. Be wary of items given to you by other people. My cousin counseled homeless youth for a few years, and one of his favorites got sent to jail for accepting a gift of a cell phone. The phone ended up being stolen out of the owner's car and had GPS attached to it. The police found him with the phone and arrested him on the spot. My cousin was called in as a character witness to testify on his behalf. Not sure what happened after that, though. Sleep with your phone by your ball bag, so if someone tries to rob you while you sleep, they can't find your phone. You share what you have with your group. What goes around comes around. If there are a group of you, each person can stand on a different corner to beg and make far more than you would by yourself. Do homeless people normally group together? It does seem like it would be safer that way. I've been both solo and hanging out with a group. Each have their own pros and cons. Solo means you don't have to share, do whatever you want, easier to hitch, but in a group you aren't as lonely and you're safer from people who like to pick on the homeless. How are you on Reddit, dude? I've heard it's next to impossible to break free from homelessness. Tell us your story, if you will. I use a smartphone. In this day and age, it's a huge resource for being homeless. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on one, that is. I chose to leave home at 17 after an altercation with my mum. She was a tweaker. I packed a guitar and a sleeping bag and some clothes and headed for Portland. After I got there, I slept under Burnside near the Mission as my first night out. What an eye-opening experience. I played guitar to earn change for food and the occasional stay at a flophouse. Then I started hitching to change the scenery. That's a really long story. I was out for about 4 years. I'm lucky enough to have made a lot of good friends over the years, and one of them is helping me get back on my feet. Still a pain in the butt finding a job, but oh well. Respect your elders, aka don't F with the old-timers. Old-timers age-wise or homeless-wise, like who outranks who, a guy in his mid-40s who had been homeless for a decade, or a 60-year-old who had just lost his home? Usually the guys who've been there longer, the 40-year-old guy outranks the 60-year-old guy in this case. But it wouldn't be well looked upon to F with the 60-year-old guy either, unless there was some kind of rumor going around about him, and unfortunately rumors don't need much verification for the homeless community to believe them when it comes to the newcomers. I lived on the streets in Seattle in 2000 and lived in shelters and transitional houses for many years after that. I was 15 at the time and there was a pretty big homeless population there. We had some weird rules. I mostly lived on Broadway and each homeless group really had their own rules. There were also the AV-rats, who lived up by the university. They had a whole political system. People were at the top and people were at the bottom. You could also get kicked off the AV, and most of those kids would end up on Broadway. Almost everyone on Broadway was a junkie or gay. And there were the downtown kids, mostly young foster runaways or kids with mental issues. Lots of juggalos down there. So I guess we were sort of the crazy group. The big one I remember is that you always take off your shoes when you sleep. And if you sleep outside, sleep on top of your bag and tuck your shoes under it. Sometimes my bag was way too packed to pull that off comfortably, but people would take your shoes just to mess with you. They'd call the annoying or new kids oogles, but they wouldn't ever kick someone else out of the neighborhood like AV-rats. Just too much smack going around really to have that kind of control. Probably the most offensive thing you can do is finding out where someone else who's homeless lives. If you follow them, they will stop and talk to you, and if you just enter a squat uninvited, well, it's really dangerous. It was respectful to pretend like you didn't care where your friends went at night. At any point, you can get uninvited too. You'll just be locked out that night. They don't give a crap about where you're staying. This isn't a pity party. Broadway is pretty small too, just about 7 blocks long. So people would panhandle right next to you all the time. If they weren't at least 2 shops away, they were probably doing it to tee you off. Or it's just their normal spot. Like I always camped out in front of this Mexican place because they had awesome leftovers. But it was absolutely uncool to sit or lie down around other homeless kids, or stand on the side of the sidewalk that the stores are on. It's illegal on Broadway and doing that just attracts the cops. I remember asking other homeless kids to stand all the time just because I was sick of getting picked up by the cops. Lots of theft too. No real idea of a moral code at all there. although people would share their substances with you all the time. That way, they had someone to bug about sharing back when they didn't have any cash. Later on, I lived at Tent City and still got stuff stolen from me quite often, even though they have a decent community there. Backstory time. I'd moved down to Florida with a friend almost on a whim. Had about $1,000 saved up at the time. He was going to get us out of the state and meet up with a girl who he later caught cheating on him. And I'd just recently broken up and wanted a good escape from Minnesota. After 2 months, we were no longer welcomed at our arranged place to stay, and I hadn't yet landed a job. We had an apartment lined up, but at this time I was already a few hundred short of the deposit check, which had been written to secure an apartment already. I'd already met a few people my age who were homeless and knew of an abandoned apartment complex with screened-in porches. I'd paid my phone bill 3 months in advance and had something about $120 of credit on the bill. Old candy bar phone, minimal texting and low minutes plan, but unlimited on nights and weekends. That made it pretty easy to stay in contact with people and very essential for getting a job. Came to find out later that my friend never replaced the rent check, which means I should have just stayed with him, but I only found out after one of my former roommates up there had convinced me I needed to come back and whip the boys in the apartment into shape. I paid her a full month's rent before moving out, just so she would have some backup in case her boyfriend and the other roommate had issues. Still on the lease, and Hurricane Katrina was coming. Those 90-degree palm trees. I shipped what I couldn't carry on the bus back to my place and hopped on a Greyhound. Anyway, my community's rule was, if you're trying to run away from good parents and are underage, we will make sure the police find you. This kid was 15, and after talking with his friends, we heard no reason for him to be running away. Just teenage angst. Made sure the police took him home, and I left my cell phone number in case he ran away again. Just because I was homeless, that didn't mean I didn't work 2 jobs. Would work about 56 hours a week at the gas station between 2 stores, and then did the usual selling papers on the streets in the morning. As a former homeless teen though, I will say that I was welcomed with open arms. I didn't come from a good home, and so when I finally got kicked out and ran away, kicked out at first, then when I didn't come back they claimed me as a runaway, I was shown how to get money, where and when to sleep, how to get food, and the best diners to chill at during cold nights. There's no way I would have made it myself if it wasn't for the help I got from fellow homeless people. A lot of really striking stories here. I can't get over how rampant homelessness seems in the US compared to other first world countries I've lived in, even with the people in question working more than full-time in some cases. I was 15 when I ran away from home because my mother threw a cast iron frying pan at my head. I didn't even have the chance to grab my shoes or a good pair of pants, and there were people who instantly helped me on my feet. I was able to find shelter, a tent city, by the end of the day. I was directed to 3 square meals per day, and from there, my own place and my own life. I was on the streets for a matter of 9 months. My advice: don't loan out anything you need to expect back. You don't have to make friends with people to survive. In fact, it's often better if you don't know a lot of people. Just don't behave like a butthead to anybody. You never know when they'll help out. There's no need to burn a bridge before you have to cross it. If someone is helping you out, be super freaking polite about it. A lot of shelters and programs have strict guidelines for how long you can use their programs. If you're polite, they might help you out a little beyond that, or they might use their contacts to get you in a better position, moving forward to the next step. If someone shares something with you, if you can return the favor, do it. If you're a runaway, don't take anything with you that was paid for by your parents. The cops can go after you as if you were a thief. If you have to run, then treat it like a clean break. Aim not to be homeless. It can be fun, just living on the street and not having expectations, but your goal should be to get the frick out of there. Try to get your education in order, get certifications, and get yourself a job. A lot of programs are available for the homeless. Take advantage of them. Don't do substances or get drunk. I know that sounds like a written rule, but there are a lot of homeless people who commune by getting trashed together or become homeless after picking up a habit. Fricking avoid this. It's expensive, both in time and money, and most people aren't going to give you crap if you say no. And they won't give you crap if you say yes. You're responsible for yourself. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My brother, who is mentally ill, was homeless on the streets of DC. He says the other homeless people got him food and forced him to eat it when he looked like he would starve because the voices in his head were telling him to avoid all food. They also made sure he had shelter and generally kept his completely helpless butt alive for almost a year. Like someone else said, I never had a problem with food. Anyway, my rules were 1. Find a group of people you can trust. That's not easy to do, by the way, and stick with them. 2. Don't be the guy with the sign asking for money. Ever. If you must ask for money, state the reason why, and if someone says, "Instead of giving you the money, I'll just pay for it myself and give it to you," don't turn that down. Fricking ever. 3. People think all homeless people are on substances because that's the stereotype they're presented with. Do your best not to blend in with those people. You'd be amazed at what people are willing to do if you're making an honest attempt at getting on your feet, and you do your best to present yourself that way. 4. Don't do anything stupid to get money, like crime or doing the deed with people for money. You will regret it. And don't be a fricking rat on people who do it. That crap will get you killed. Remember, a lot of the people in your world are off the grid. 5. If you're getting nowhere in the city you're in, get out of there. There's always someone headed your way. 6. Never ever turn down a chance to do some work. Never. That may be an opportunity to get you started again. 7. Even if you're not religious, if a religious family offered you a place to stay, sometimes, if you go to church with us, but not always, don't turn it down. And don't do anything to them such as steal or rob from them. That's how reputations get started. 8. You're never too good for anything. If you think you are, that might be why you're out there to begin with. 9. Yeah, those clothes might stink, but at least you have some. 10. Americans, if you're young enough, the military may be your best option. Money, food, bed, and job, and all that you have to do is show up. 11. Stay off substances. That again might be why you're out there and could very well cost you a chance to get off the streets. I'm sure that's not what you're asking, but it's been over 20 years since I got back on my feet, and those are the things that have stuck with me. My source? Being homeless for 2 years. I was homeless for about 4 months in Las Vegas. Rules I learned in the area, keep in mind that I'm a girl by the way. 1. Don't walk around without some sort of knife because drunk, stupid people like to pick on homeless people. 2. Search each machine you can for loose change and vouchers. Also, if you spend $1 at the penny slots and need a drink, you can get free ones on Fremont Street, which is also a great source of free entertainment when you're bored. 3. If you find a friend, make sure one watches while one sleeps. 4. Make use of shelter money. In Vegas, there's a social service run by a church outfit that provides you with housing vouchers if you're one of the first 10 people in line in the morning. You can find a friend, double up on the vouchers in some places, and get weekly rental for an entire month. This is awesome during the summer when it's 120 degrees outside and you need AC and a shower. This is also cool if you find a job with a telemarketing company or something that requires you to shower daily. 5. If you get involved in substances or have a gambling problem and you're already homeless, you're pretty much destined to remain homeless in Vegas. 6. If you have food stamps, share. I once had a homeless man buy me a sandwich and it was the most humbling experience of my entire life. My backstory? Well, I was 23 and newly divorced with no job and nowhere to turn. My ex kicked me out, so I moved to Arizona from Texas. I'm originally from California, and stayed with some friends. I met the wrong kind of people and ended up on a 4-month bender with a guy we'll call D-Bag. Basically, I did all sorts of bad stuff and had no support from my family because they saw the path I was headed on and told me I needed to pull my crap together. So I was homeless in Vegas because it seemed like the land of opportunity. Once I realized it wasn't, I stopped doing substances. I got that voucher and got a job at a telemarketing place. Then, after a few weeks, I called my brother, basically ate my crow, and came to live with him. 3 jobs, an apartment, and an illness later, I was back at my mum's after 2 years. 2 years after that, I was an EMT. Then, social services became my calling. 2 years ago, I moved back to Northern California, got back into school, and got a job at a car wash. Now, I'm a 4.0 student in college, and I'm focusing on finishing 2 degrees and transferring to a UC in the next year. It's been a lot of hard work, reflection, and blind luck. Also, financial aid is awesome. I wouldn't change anything, and I'm almost 30 and I've done a lot. But the adventure continues. Basically, just keep going and eventually something will break. That's about all I've got. It's pretty gnarly out there, and I'm definitely glad I'm no longer homeless. I gave back what I can these days and am pursuing a career in social services so that I can continue to help others. What a story. I can imagine being on the streets in a place with as many tempting diversions to burn your money on as Vegas could turn into a sort of spiral of self-destruction. Well done on getting out of there, really. Homeless for 5 years here, since I was 18, here's a few I've noticed. Prison and jail culture bleeds into the homeless community. Watch your words. Words normal people get to say can have serious meanings on the streets. One example, saying the B word to someone might get you attacked. Watch your mouth or you won't last long. No one's pressing charges or calling the cops. If you get into a fight with someone, it's all he said, she said bullcrap. Everyone takes it, and conflicts resolve themselves. Everyone you're around is homeless. You've got to stay in that shelter with them every night. You'll share the same public spaces that everyone who's homeless has to. You don't have a choice. Keep to yourself, don't mouth off, and don't F with anyone else, or you'll get F'd with. Your cigs are everyone else's cigs. Everyone on the street smokes, and if you've got them, you're probably going to end up sharing them. I've been technically homeless about 3 times before the age of 15, but you wouldn't be able to tell it just by looking at me or conversing briefly. Average-looking, white, 20-year-old male college student. Without explaining a ton of other stuff and including many sad stories, I'll get to the meat of the question. For my family, I remembered that we would go to the library every day for several hours at a time. It's a place where extended stays aren't particularly unusual. Additionally, you have AC, heat, internet, computer access, water fountains, bathrooms, lounge chairs, and nearly endless educating vessels surrounding you in the form of books. In conclusion, if you're ever homeless, go to the library. I was homeless at age 17, but lived in a shelter and not on the street. My experiences might vary from yours. Don't fricking trust anyone. The women in my shelter would befriend you and backstab you just to laugh at you when you got kicked out. Are there a lot of working girls in the area? Chances are some of the women in the shelter are part of that problem. Mental illness. Mental illness everywhere. Doesn't have to be severe, but there are a lot of messed up people. Be careful who you confront, especially if you're unsure of their mental capacity. Do you own things of any value? Well, better keep them to yourself, because some butthole will try to steal them and resell them. You don't mess with other people's children. Seriously, you don't know who is friends with who, and who might F your crap up. Also, don't make comments about their baby daddies if it's very obvious they have several. Touchy subject, usually. Don't steal each other's food. If you do, they will hunt you and find you. I once saw a woman have substances planted on her so that she'd get kicked out once they found out she was stealing food. I used to do Food Not Bombs in DC. We served meals every Sunday for several years, and I got to know a lot of the homeless people in the city. I saw quite a bit of mental illness afflicting some seriously brilliant people. One guy would pull out photocopies of the Shroud of Turin, trying to convince us that Jesus had no private parts, and go on a rant from there. Another homeless guy once cut him off, saying, "He's trying to lobotomize Jesus between the legs." The latter guy ruled. He'd quote Thomas Aquinas and lived for a pat, by which he meant a little hug. My experience taught me 2 things. The first is that the group we dealt with were often super grateful for the food we brought because it tasted good. It's sort of how I learned to cook. Had lots of vegetables, and we didn't preach to them about religion. I remember one guy saying, "I don't need you to try and save me before giving me a stale bologna sandwich." The other thing is that the people we served almost never begged for money. They would quietly try to make things work. It tended to be the addicts who would beg. That said, there was this one guy who would ask for money whenever I saw him around the city, and I'd offer to buy him food. He jumped at the offer twice and went nuts at a 7-Eleven and a breakfast place, respectively. He was hungry. There are some jerks in the homeless community, but there are also some jerks with homes. That's the long and short of it. I have a bunch of stories, but I'd say that if you have the time to stop and talk with the person for a minute, you can learn a lot and measure whether it's worth trying to help them out. Save every penny. Buy a tent. Put your tent next to a river. Go to the library every single day. Spend as much time as you can applying for jobs. Take the first job you can get. Keep bathing in the river and working until winter. Do not spend a dime on booze. Once winter comes, get an apartment and keep working. Apply to your local technical college and get a job in IT. Stop being homeless. It worked for me. To any road folk in Tennessee, make your way to Hippie Hill in Christiana. It's near Manchester. They will feed you and set you up with a tent or trailer to stay in until you get back on your feet. All they ask for is a little bit of help around the land. Ask for hippie or mama. What was the most horrifying experience you've ever endured in a video game? There was this game back in the day for GameCube called Eternal Darkness. Your character had sanity levels, and as this meter dropped, more and more effed up things would happen. A scream that you couldn't find the source of, blood dripping down the walls, an enemy attacks you out of nowhere and disappears as you realize it was a hallucination. The thing is, some of these things happened outside of normal gameplay. It would look like you were turning the volume down on your TV or changing the channel, or like a cable came unplugged. One of these was that it looked like you had navigated to the memory card. Remember those? And then clicked to format the card. That moment of panic. The complete horror as I thought every save and every game I'd played was being erased. That is by far the most horrifying thing I've ever experienced in a video game. Playing the first Sims game when I was like 9 years old with some friends. I covered a room in rugs because it looked neat. Turned on a fire because it was cozy. Immediately, the whole room was set ablaze like the rugs were soaked in oil. No gradual fire catching like in The Sims 2 or onwards. The parents of the family were trapped and died. The kids on the upper floor couldn't leave the building because the fire was on the way. We couldn't change to building or shopping or click any commands, not even speed up because it was banned during fires. My friends and I were horrified and had to watch them die for like 5 minutes straight until the fire completely died out.
My first Sims game was Sims 2. The very first night the Sim moved into the new house, he decided to eat barbecue for dinner, proceeded to light himself on fire, and died because I didn't know about fire alarms.
Had 198 out of 200 Pokemon on Sapphire. My little sister wiped the save so she could play a few hours on a girl character, then got bored of it.
Ah yes, it must have felt really good being an only child after that.
The first time I killed a Peep in Roller Coaster Tycoon by drowning him in a lake by accident after deleting part of a pier. I was traumatized and put the game down for a while. I came back later and decided to be more careful. I ended up creating a roller coaster in the desert level that flew off its rails and exploded, killing all of its passengers. Needless to say, I went crazy and built a death park in the aftermath. You know what? I'm not sure that anyone who owns Roller Coaster Tycoon hasn't at some point built rides specifically to see how many people they can send flying to their deaths, how many people they can fit on a catwalk above the water before deleting said catwalk, and whether they can direct roller coaster crashes onto major thoroughfares to see whether the explosions will kill pedestrians. It wasn't just me, right? In Resident Evil 4, I was just shooting the water at the end of the pier because I thought I'd get the fish. When that big fish came up and ate me, I almost crapped myself. The other moment like that for me is the chainsaw guy cutting off your head for the first time. My first death in the game was from that. It made me drop the controller and I was shocked that it had just happened. Same game. I crapped a brick later when that dude bursts out of an oven and he's on fire and he's just gunning straight for you. Animal Crossing for the GameCube. There was a thing that let you visit a friend's town by sticking their memory card in the other slot. When you visited, it was really aggressive about warning you not to turn off the game while in the other town. Yep, that happened. It was an accident. My character when I got the game to boot up again was a changed little villager. Where once was a happy face were 2 black pits for eyes and a mouth in perpetual scream. And all of my money was gone. Turned the game off and cried in fear. Nintendo apparently did this on purpose to try and punish people who were save scumming, but all it did was scare the crap out of little old me. The climax to Dying Light, where you have to run away from all the night crawlers, volatiles. Oh my god, my heart was pounding so much. Oh man, being outside at night for the first time in that game was the worst. That game was amazing! The mission where you have to set the bombs in that building was the scariest for me. It was the first time I'd ever played with high-quality headphones. The sound in that game was really well done. Found myself hiding in corners to gather courage. Oh, and when that ghost kid thing screams at you, forget about it. Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. I'm 17 playing this while home alone on a stormy night. My sanity meter is ratcheting up. My pet cat has a habit of playing with the cables behind the TV. Enter a new room and the video drops from the screen, goes black and says, Vid 1 in green at the top. Oh my god, frick you, cat! I went to look behind the TV to fix things. Lightning. Look behind TV, cables still plugged in. Thunder. Blood-curdling scream from TV. I jump, hit my head, and I need a new pair of pants. Why? Why make me think there are problems with my hardware? Oh, to make me drop my guard and absolutely terrify me in ways I never expected to be scared. Metal Gear Solid 2 when Raiden is running around undressed and the game starts glitching. There was a part where it says not to close the TV and you should get some rest or something along those lines. It was 3 AM and I was sitting in front of the TV. I just cut the game off. I remember the part where the colonel says something like, "You've been playing the game for a long time, you should really take a break." I thought it was going to be truly necessary to save and reboot the game, since Hideo Kojima is insane. So I did. When you're a kid, you're so immersed into the game. When the game breaks the fourth wall, it really F's with your mind. I shut the game off when he told me to. Playing Resident Evil in the dark and seeing that damn dog break through the window. I can remember everything about that moment.
The Crimson Heads were great. You're banging along doing your Resident Evil thing, crossing through that long mirror hallway like you've done 15 times before then, and then the zombie corpse that's been lying there the whole time gets up and frickin' sprints at you. Now you think, oh god, I've been killing zombies this whole time. The mansion's full of them. I know I'm not the only one who spazzed out a little there.
At university, I would invite my friend around to play Outlast about one night a week until it got completed. For the duration of the game, I endured all jump scares stoically, solid as a rock, except one moment where my character was outside and a freaking leaf flew across the screen. Fell off my chair in fright. Since then, if it's ever windy on an autumn day, I can guarantee some smart aleck comment from my friend. Batman Arkham Asylum, the Scarecrow introduction. I thought my brother would kill me for breaking his beloved toy. Are we talking about the moment when the game glitches and makes you believe it's started over, and you've lost all your progress up until that point, which was basically about half to two-thirds of the way through the game? If so, then yes, the developers really knew how to put the fear into the hearts of gamers for a second.
I played it on PC and was literally fumbling around to find the reset button on the front panel under my desk when the video started. I was sitting there somewhat dumbfounded as to how a PC game could reboot like a console when I finally figured out what was happening. Freaking brilliant, and I totally fell for it.
Yes, the narrator remembers sitting on his brand new custom-built gaming PC doing a Wii gaming marathon on the brand new Batman game and thinking that his rig had suffered a catastrophic shutdown. Yes, the biggest thing the Scarecrow could scare a gamer with was the idea that their machine was dying. My sister unplugged my Battlefront 2 save file when I was saving to the card and it got corrupted. She wanted to watch TV. I had hundreds of hours of stats on that account. I'm still not over it.
It's treason, then.
Max Payne, where he has the hallucination with the baby crying and his wife screaming, still gives me nightmares.
I had to mute that part until I passed it so my parents wouldn't come out and be like, "What the frick are you playing?"
My first shiny Pokemon was a Graveler. It used Explode.
I've heard a story from someone who had observed the unluckiest person in existence. They encountered 2 shinies in a row, both Graveler. Both self-destructed. They are also the reason I will always have a good supply of quick balls.
When you're playing Medieval 2 Total War and the Mongols or Timurids show up for the first time.
Crusader Kings as well. A good late-game horde in that game can frick up people in the safest of areas. First playthrough, no idea what was going to happen. I chose Georgia. I was having a great time and really felt like I was getting the hang of the game.
The first time I encountered a witch in Left 4 Dead. Frick that crap, man. I've never been more terrified in my life. The mannequins in Condemned. I've been saying for years that Condemned is the scariest game I've ever played. I think it's because it's not monster horror, it's real tension, and actual people scaring the crap out of you, hearing screams and heavy breathing in a dark room from some cracked-out tweaker, and then seeing a chair fly past you from a room you know you have to go in. That crap is scary because it could be real. Then amplify it by the fact that you almost never have a gun, just melee weapons that you pick up. I love the game, but could only play through it once. The first moments when you step out of the bathysphere in Rapture, after a splicer has cut some of the metal, and the only thing you're holding is a damn wrench. Terrifying. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Alien Isolation. Medical Bay. When a person sends you to look for something in an area where the alien is actively searching for you, you can't just hide and wait for it to go away. It won't go away. It waits. For you. It took me a month to beat that part. And then the hive level. It took me more than a year to beat Alien Isolation. 10 out of 10, recommend. Because the alien learns. It found out I liked to hide in those computer cards and it always searched them when it entered the room. Though my scariest moment is when I found out it can chase you in the vents. It was after me, so I ducked into one and made a 90-degree turn. I thought I was safe until I heard a fast bang, bang, bang. And as I turned around, it was just barreling down the vents at me on all fours. I nearly passed myself. I bought that game and I couldn't get into it at first because the plot is so slow in the beginning. But eventually I got determined and made my way through the slow first act to get to the xenomorph, and I was glad that I did. One of the best games I've ever played and one of the most rewarding experiences in gaming I've ever had. Now I actually kind of appreciate the slow first act because it's trying to get you on edge, the same way the movie did. It's a slow burn, which is something we aren't used to in games. We want instant gratification, and that's not what the original movie was about. Outlast Whistleblower. When the last villain almost succeeds in cutting off your private parts with a circular saw so that he can commit the unspeakable act against you in the wound afterwards. I'm not kidding. Holy crap, that happens? What are you sick people doing playing these sorts of games? I'm used to descriptions of awful real-life events that we can't properly describe in these videos, but I was not aware that people were subjecting themselves to first-person simulations of this kind of thing. As another commenter aptly writes, "Excellent. I now know what game series I never ever want to play." First time playing the site recon mission on XCOM. I sent my A squad. Mistake number 1. I took note that chrysalids came from the sharks, but didn't realize they came from every dead shark on the level. Mistake number 2. I figured I had to turn on the beacon, and after I made it back to the ship, the airstrike would happen. Mistake number 3. So imagine my surprise when the timer for the airstrike pops up after I turned on the beacon. I panicked, and with chrysalids coming from behind us and popping out of dead sharks ahead of us, it was a slaughter. Everyone died, including Big Mama Simbra Legitho, a heavy from Zimbabwe that had a 94 in aim and had well over 100 kills. The worst is when Shepard says that even though everyone died, the mission was a success. Go F yourself. I still won't play that mission just because of the hatred and PTSD I have from playing it. Frick chrysalids and frick that mission. Probably the entirety of Dead Space 1. Just saying, that crap effed me up. Seriously, man, I purposefully played it with the lights off. My younger days weren't the brightest. Going down that ladder in the first Fear game. Not the scariest moment in gaming, but it was my first horror game. My now ex-friend deleted my Pokemon save and restarted with Bulbasaur. I only needed Growlithe and Arcanine to finish the Pokédex. I was 8 when I got Ocarina of Time. Those fricking zombies you have to get past to get to the Sun Song and leave the Temple of Time as adult Link have scarred me to this game. How about dead hands in the bottom of the well and in the Shadow Temple? Any difficult section in a game with unskippable cutscenes before it. The Seymour battle in the mountains, Final Fantasy X, was this for me. Fricking Unalesca. How about frick any Japanese game for this exact reason? Playing games with my son, who's 8, and we're playing Rocket League. I always try to give him a chance to win, until a couple of weeks back. He's up 2-1, and I haven't been easy on him, and as time dwindles away, I'm busting my butt, doing my best to tie the score. I always keep it close, but sometimes I let him win. Sometimes I win. The kid's got to learn how to take a loss, you know? Except, I can't score. The little guy's saving shots, keeping the ball away from me, I'm missing hits, everything. He wins 2-1. He's all smiles, does a great job treating the win like a loss, meaning not running his mouth or anything. On the outside, I'm smiling, having a good time, but on the inside is a mixture of frustration, proudness, and general what the frick-icity because this is it, the beginning of the end. I'm not sure if this counts, but many years ago, geez, I'm old, I was at the top of the case ladder for Duke Nukem 3D. I log on one day to find I was number 2. I'd only been number 1 for 3 days and I'd not gotten any challenges, so I should have still been number 1. When I contacted the ladder admin, he said I'd ignored a challenge, since the rules state you can ignore a challenge only once, and you must play at least 1 match per week. I hadn't broken any rules, but it didn't matter to him. So I challenged the number 1 guy, beat him, and then he accused me of cheating and the admin sided with him. Turns out the admin was the number 1 guy. The water part in AmITheA Dark Descent. The first time my friend and I tried to play this part, we were taking shots because liquid courage. Unfortunately, the more we drank, the scarier it got. Vault 11 in Fallout New Vegas. The one with the sacrificial chamber under the Overseer's office. Probably my favorite side quest storyline of any game ever, and I don't think there's anything even linking to it. I just stumbled upon it randomly.
The vault in Fallout 3 where it's just full of dudes that say, "Gary," scared the crap out of me back in the day. Not sure why, it was just uncomfortable.
The first thing that sprung to my mind is the hotel basement in The Last of Us. Up until that point in the game, you've never not had a partner or two, and then suddenly you're alone in a pitch-black pit full of monsters. But that aside, the real answer is the entirety of PT. It's a horror classic, and it's an absolute travesty that it's no longer available for download. Playing the original Diablo, and no lie, I was about to kill Diablo when a loud thunderclap occurred and shut off my power and PC. Shout out to the butcher in Diablo 1. When you open the door full of dismembered bodies and entrails everywhere, and that big mother fricker yells, "Fresh meat," and runs at you. I was like 5 or 6 when I played that, and I'll still always remember it.
Haha, first time I opened the door and heard,
"Fresh meat,"
I left immediately and was like, hell nah.
The big red monstrosity is responsible for too many hours of fear and frustration in my childhood. Recently, the narrator went back and faced his fears and struck the beast down at last. He then downloaded the Beelzebub mod and went straight back to being fearful and frustrated about him. That part in Dead Space 2 with the laser in the eyeball. Cringy crap right there.
Honestly, anything eye-related makes me freak out. It's as if my eyeballs don't want to see their kin being slaughtered in any way.
I just squinted my eyes really hard after reading this. When I was in middle school, I got Myst for my DS. It's totally silent except for possible machines you turned on or clues. In one building there were these books. You open them, and there are screens inside with fuzzy moving images of people talking in creepy, old radio-like voices. Nope. I didn't endure it, but my little brother told me about the time when a friend of his was looking over his save files for his PlayStation. He looked at an over 300-hour, almost maxed-out save file of Final Fantasy IV and hit a button. "Do you want to delete the save file?" My little brother tensed up and said very carefully, "Whatever you do, do not select yes." The friend said, "What, yes?" and hits random buttons, and the save file is gone. I cringe and shudder just thinking about it.
We don't go to Ravenholm. You know, it's weird. Horror games don't bother me, but Ravenholm? There's something about that level that just sets my teeth on edge.
I think it's because the game, Half-Life 2, is grim bright, but that section is both grim and dark. When I was 11, Halo Combat Evolved came out. I don't play horror games and didn't expect anything like the Flood was going to pop up. It creeped me out a bit, and how closed in the library level was a bit scary to 11-year-old me. My little brother saving over my almost complete game file in GoldenEye. This was what also taught me to keep multiple save files just in case. In The Sims 3, my sim was staying at someone's house for too late, around 2 AM if I recall correctly, so the game tried to make a nearby sim shoo my sim away so he'll leave. There were adult sims on the lot, but for some reason the game bugged out and a baby tried doing the shoo animation, which made it just look like the fricking alien from Alien Isolation. Pretty much all of BioShock. When you walk into that dentist's office and it gets all foggy, and then he's right behind you just staring at you when you turn around. That or the shotgun on the floor in the pool of light. You know it's a trap, but gosh darn it, you need that shotgun. Or those freaking ballerina statue things placed everywhere, and you find an upgrade machine in a small, dimly lit, flooded room, and when you finish upgrading, you turn around and there is a statue there that wasn't before. I immediately ran up and started beating the statue with my wrench. It didn't die, but it bled everywhere. That let me know those things were alive. Sonic 2006. Just the entire game, really. I played Half-Life 2 for the first time and I didn't know anything about it. Then Dr. Kleiner's head crab jumped right at my face and I'd never been so frightened over a video game. It was Lemmings, or possibly Lemmings 2. Anyway, I was out 1 pixel in my digger's position and the whole troop fell from one platform into a burning pit of oil on the platform below them. It was all over before I could hit the explode all option. I felt so ashamed. When I was playing Left 4 Dead split screen with a friend and we encountered what we dubbed the hardcore insane tank. So the tank is an incredibly buff, gorilla-like zombie that tries to steamroll you. But this tank was different. He swung us around, then he ran away. Then he came from a different direction to punch our teammates. He kept doing this. He kept hiding and ambushing us, and no matter what we did, he just wouldn't die. Keep in mind that this was offline and not at all how a tank is supposed to act. So we just decided to bail and hide in the safe room, the starting point on the map. It has an unbreakable iron door. We closed the door and he just busted right through it like the Kool-Aid Man. I didn't even know this was possible, so you can imagine our reaction. I'm pretty sure it was a bugged tank, but my god, the tension was real. Never encountered anything like it again. Accidentally killing my horse in Skyrim. Kept my horse's meat in the chest in my first house and never bought another horse again. Then I ported to Whiterun and my horse was in the stable. So confused but relieved my horse was alive. Brought it with me to Kinsgrove and it got roasted by the dragon there. I hate my life. Rest in peace, Clip-Clop Doggo. I had a Final Fantasy VII save where I was planning to get all the characters to level 99, including her. I had about 20 hours into it, my friend came over and we played the game, and I took the controller from them when saving so she wouldn't save over my game. Then I saved over my game. Alien Isolation. I'm so near to the end, as far as I know, but it started giving me the fear, and I honestly can't play more than 15 minutes at a time before I wig out and quit. I've been playing horror games since the year dot, but this is the first one I just can't deal with. Crap, I couldn't even get as far as encountering the alien before quitting the game. Creative Assembly hit me right in the spot with my fears to make it too spooky for me. I can't think of any other game that's done that. Divorced men. What moment made you realize it's time for a divorce? When my buddies approached me to complain that she kept sitting on their laps, wiggling and hoping for a reaction.
You have some good buddies, man.
Super awkward when your buddy's wife is finding any excuse to touch or rub you. If you say something, you risk causing a fight or him not believing you. If you say nothing, you're a bad person. I was a lance corporal bringing home scraps for a paycheck to an unemployed wife who one day brought home a brand new Lexus IS 350 because she got a good deal on it. Apparently, I was supposed to pay the $800 a month bill. I didn't think it was a good deal. My friend got a pretty substantial year-end bonus from work. He decided to use most of it for his wife's Christmas gift and pay off her remaining student loans, about $15,000, and the remaining portion to buy a new computer chair for when he gamed, about $300. Christmas morning, he was nice enough to let me stay at his place when I traveled for work. As he lived 20 minutes from the airport, we all woke up and had breakfast. His family and her parents came over and we started exchanging gifts. Besides paying for her loans, he had gotten her a few items. She opened the card saying her loans were paid off and she just sat there for a minute. After the silence, and assuming she was kind of in shock, she asked,
"Did you seriously not get me anything else? I brought you that stupid keyboard."
She got him the wrong one, by the way.
"And you only got me a few things?"
At that point, his brother-in-law and myself decided to hang out in another room for a while they ended up getting into a huge fight. A day later, when he was dropping me off at the airport, he told me he was going to visit a lawyer and get a divorce. I'd been seeing a girl for 6 months. I knew she was unstable and explosive, but I was in love with her good side and also kind of an idiot. She convinced me to move in with her, then convinces me we need a new kitchen, a new bathroom, a new couch, new TV, and she also needs a driver's license. Since she was permanently broke, I paid for it all like a good boyfriend does. Then I broke my leg. She took care of me for a few days, then said I could do my own grocery shopping and make my own dinner since she wasn't my mother. Mind you, we lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building and there was no elevator, while I was up to my knee in cast. The week after, she went out with friends most nights of the week using my car and told me to do all of the groceries. When I didn't, she yelled at me that I was just leeching off her and that I was a lazy, worthless sack of crap just laying there on the couch that I bought, and that she always had to do everything and never got her anything. I turned down the TV that I brought, and for the first time since we'd met, I just gave in and let the hate flow through me, and blasted her with every B-word thing she did, just yelling from the couch, but it felt great letting it all out. She then kicked me out for insulting her and told me she'd been banging a dude from work all week anyway. Well, the losses up until that point suck, but it seems like you might have dodged a bullet in the long term there. Hope you got all your furniture back. When she falsely told our marriage counselor that I punched her. The next week, she denied saying it and accused our counselor of lying. He gave me a, "You should leave this relationship" look. I took that look as permission from a professional that I definitely wasn't making the wrong decision. Got divorced and never looked back. I legitimately feared for my safety toward the end. Not that she'd hurt me, but that she would make a false accusation to the cops or a crazy friend. She let me know she was pregnant and wanted my permission to tell all of her girlfriends during a girls' night out. Since I knew there was no possible way it was my child, she was also unknowingly admitting to having an affair. I can math, she can't. It was with her boss. We were at a point in our relationship where we were fighting all the time, so I just slept in the guest bedroom, so I wouldn't have to hear her screeching. But for some reason, on Father's Day, that's how I remembered the exact date, she came upstairs and basically forced herself on me. When she told me, "We're pregnant, I want to tell all my friends, oh joy!" I asked her when the doctor expected her due date. Then I did the math. 7.5 months does not a baby make. Finally got a prenatal paternity test out of her. I think she still believed she'd ninja'd my baby inside of her, and the truth came out and I finally just told her, "Just tell me the truth, we can work through anything." Then she fessed up. My lie was that I was going to work through anything. I'd already had divorce proceedings in the works. Lawyered up the next day and he ate her alive in court. I got primary custody of our child we already had and child support and a sheriff's notice that she had to vacate my home in 30 days. I never knew she could be that stupid. I realized when a friend's wife said to me, "You know, your wife is sleeping with my husband, right?" I mean, that's a pickup line if ever I knew one. I mean, we might as well. I knew mine was over the morning I saw a picture of some guy's eggplant on her phone. She was classy enough to bring him to the divorce proceedings. "Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit D into evidence." When she staged a robbery of our house so she could fence off all of my stuff for smack money. When my stepdaughter became a teenager, my ex ramped up the nutso. She'd always been an impatient, angry screamer of a parent, but as my stepdaughter became a young woman, my ex just went crazy with envy or something. I know lots of mums have a hard time with teenage daughters, but their base-level patience is so much better than my ex's was. Threats of cutting the daughter's hair in the middle of the night while she slept, pulling hair, slapping face, ridiculing her in front of her friends, swinging something that missed, and putting a hole in the wall. I was out, and I took the kids with me. My wife was around less and less. Had to be free to live her life, go out with her friends. More often than not, she would call me to pick up our daughter from daycare, after promising to pick her up and have some girl time with her. She'd say to just tell the daughter she was working late or not feeling very well. She always had something better to do, and the kids were old enough to know better. I went to pick up our daughter one day, and when they called her name, she came running over until she saw it wasn't Mum, again, and slumped her shoulders and slowly walked over to ask, "What's her excuse this time?" That was the breaking point. I told her to get out, and even helped pay her security deposit to get her out. This one hits close to home with me. My dad and mom were never married, and I was 2 when they broke up, but my mom was supposed to be there for me. She would make all sorts of promises to come hang out with me and pick me up and do things, but 9 times out of 10, she wouldn't show. I remember getting excited if she showed up for one of my birthdays. How sad is that? She should have been there regardless. She always had these dumb excuses as to why she couldn't come. It broke my heart. My mom has been dead for 3 years now. I'm 22, and all I can think about when I think of her is I hope I never damage a child the way she damaged me. Tell your daughter some internet stranger sends her empathetic love. My wife made me watch Oprah, which was grounds enough, but there was also a quiz. It was an "is your marriage okay or not" kind of thing. In my head, I saw 7 or 10 items that were not okay. My wife didn't see any. We'd already been to counseling. Question 1. Does your husband enjoy watching Oprah? Her? Well, of course, he's sitting right here with me. Him? I wonder if I can accidentally pour bleach in my eyes. I was working on a mother-daughter scrapbook as a Christmas present for her. Was going through her Google Photos account looking for pictures of them together. I came across a selfie she took of some guy lying on top of her. Confirmed her second affair. I knew it was over the moment I saw it. That has messed me up pretty good.
We flew across the country for her sister's wedding. She didn't say a word to me the entire time since we'd parked at the airport. Once we landed at our destination, we walked to baggage claim, absolute silence proceeding for several hours now. At the carousel, I picked up her bag when she took it out of my hands and calmly stated, "None of my family knows you're here. I told them I came alone." She walked out of the airport and left me there. Narcissistic personality disorder made for some really fun scenarios. During the last year and a half of our marriage, she became extremely psychologically manipulative. She was a narcissist, controlled my every move, would isolate me, refused physical contact. I was just an extension of her life. Was not allowed to talk to any woman and was not allowed to hang out with any friends or should just ignore me for up to 5 days at a time. Double standards everywhere. Verbal attacks, and the list can continue, but it hurts to think about. The last straw for me was when she threatened to kill me because I came home from work late, even though she knew I'd be home late. It was just a little too late for her, and she also threatened to hit me the same day. This was the second time this happened, and I talked with several people at work about it, and they suggested that I run. I had texts of the threats on my phone and contacted a lawyer that same week. She agreed to sign since I told her I would take severe legal action if she didn't. Thankfully, no children, and it was a clean divorce, and now I'm happily divorced. Yeah, look, I know that in some cases, divorce is rated as a highly stressful life event, immediately behind deaths in one's close family. But it doesn't always have to be that way. Unfortunately, it's probably only a good life event when it follows several years of extreme hardship. When she presented a picture of our 4-year-old daughter and me lying next to each other on the couch watching Blue's Clues to our marriage counselor as evidence of my inappropriate conduct around our kids, thank God he saw right through that bullcrap immediately and told her to knock it off. We've been divorced almost 5 years now. The process isn't fair, but that really wasn't my ex's fault. No allegations of inappropriate behavior with my kids or misconduct were brought up against me during the proceedings, so that was all good. They wouldn't have flown for a minute in court anyway. Our kids are older now, and every day are becoming better equipped to see and understand the difference between what's reasonable and right and what's simply just bat crap insane. And it's not working out all that well for their mother, who hasn't changed her MO much, if at all, since we parted ways. So it goes. I'm happily remarried now with a woman with kids of her own. Kids who were friends and schoolmates of my kids before she and I even got to know each other. They're all our kids now. Life is good. No more shenanigans. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I had a friend who went through this, and there were so many lies leveled at him. At one stage, even his computer was seized by police after she alleged he had inappropriate material featuring children on it. It was so demoralizing. The only way he could see his kids was through supervised visits. A couple of things were in his favor, though. The staff where he had to go and see his kids could tell he was genuine. He never once reacted to his ex either, which showed his character. He'd completely lose his crap when it was just me and him, though, understandably. About 6 months in, the police returned his computer and found nothing, obviously. This was a major turning point for his case. His behavior throughout was spotless. He's actually a really gentle and caring guy. Meanwhile, his ex was racking up DUI charges, which also helped. That was around 4 years ago now. He's had sole custody ever since. Remarried to a nice girl who's their mom now. The ex just lost interest, which is sad, but good that she's not interfering also. I used to love doing chores for her because she loved being taken care of. When she stopped noticing, it started hurting. Then one day, I made a bench for our entryway out of barnwood. Took about 40 hours of work. She walked in the house after work that day and set her purse on it and proceeded to start the fight, where she told me that she was mad she got married to me. She stormed out of the house grabbing her purse. Never noticed the bench was there. I knew then, but I think she already knew. When my 2-year-old was learning to walk, he would constantly say another guy's name. Apparently, he was there from the moment I left for work until I got home. Single dad for 5 years with primary custody now. Finding her on Christmas Eve, still sending racy messages to a co-worker whom she claimed she was no longer in contact with, having been busted doing this to him previously. I cleared out of there like a blackjack dealer. When I, as the only earner in the house, was denied buying a new pair of work boots in December because she needed the money to buy vaccines for the puppies. She bred dogs as a hobby. I was a framing carpenter in Ohio.
My current work boots were toast, holes in both, no soles. I needed them. Her puppy vaccine story was bullcrap, by the way. Her hobby was dogs, but she was a pro at popping pills. That's what she needed the money for. I was done with her by March. When, after being in Afghanistan for 8 months, from May of 02 to November of 02, she was missing. She had my car. I found 2 random women with kids and pets living in the apartment I paid for. The electricity cut off, no money in my bank account, and a pay advance authorized by my commander, and a friend telling me to go easy on her because she was 5 months pregnant with his kid. Oh, and he'd had heart surgery to remove some kind of cyst from his heart just before I left. He was 23, had a pacemaker, and basically half a heart. If I scared him, he could die. I'd say that was the moment I realized. I hope you snuck up behind him and popped an inflated paper bag real aggressive-like. I found out she had cheated on me, and upon me confronting her to discuss it, she manipulated me into thinking she was about to take her own life. Then she admitted the manipulation. I was done. She may have once been a nice person, but that's all gone now. Forgot to mention that I found out because she had left her Facebook open with a conversation about her pregnancy scares with her friend. We hadn't done the deed in a bit more than a month. When she moved out while I was camping with 2 of our sons, and there was no discussion of whether her leaving was permanent or potentially temporary in her view. My neighbor's wife screaming "Putain" downstairs after she caught my bride and her husband screwing in front of the fireplace. This happened to one of my parents' friends. Both couples did a swap and are now happily married. My dad cheated on my mom when I was 12. A couple of weeks after she kicked him out, my mom started dating my dad's girlfriend's husband. I hated all of them. Not my wife, but my fiancée. I just called it off because we were house hunting and she kept wanting to look at houses that would accommodate an extra permanent guest, her estranged father who she was wanting to reinitiate ties with, but she wouldn't admit she was doing this. I found out from a buddy that she was wanting me to lay out the money for the down payment and then was going to break it off herself and fight like hell to keep the house. 2 years down the drain, but a lifetime of fortunate near miss. When I saw the text to her lover that said something to the effect of, "I miss your eggplant in my butt," and "I had some fun in the gym shower thinking of you." B-word never sent me texts like that in 10 years of marriage. I still have the text saved somewhere in the divorce file. This was not the first affair, but it was the one that finished it for me. I endured a physically, emotionally, and mentally taxing relationship for over 6 years with my first wife, 4 of which we were married for. There were many, many instances that should have caused our marriage's demise. The proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, though, was 8 days after I had major oral surgery. Due to a freak medical occurrence, I had to have 28 teeth cut out and 2 holes drilled into my sinus cavities from top of the back of my gums. She and I were in a grocery store parking lot, and I asked her not to start an argument in the store because it's a small town and I was so tired of being those people. Her reaction was to backhand me in the mouth 6 times. Or at least I counted 6 times because I'm pretty darn sure I lost consciousness. I just remember waking up when we were pulling into our driveway while she's freaking out because my face is against the window and blood is coming from my mouth like a fountain. From those of you wondering why I picked a forum from the perspective of the husbands rather than both the spouses, let me just say I don't enjoy reading stories like the last one, and they are a lot more prevalent from the wife's perspective, sadly. So try to view it less as cherry-picking and more trying not to get too dispirited with my work. This video should not be taken as an indication that women are more awful than men in these situations. When she said, "You didn't pray hard enough and that's why our son has cancer. That's why I'm sleeping with my prayer partner," that woman takes the cake for queen of rationalizations. This is the first one that made me look up and mouth, "What the frick?" I was at work and got a call from my grandparents that she had shot our dog Zoe that was laying on the bed with her. We were separated before that for other reasons, but that's when I ponied up a few grand and went to an attorney to file. I really miss her. The dog, I mean. I left for work at 6 a.m. and forgot to unplug the toaster. When I arrived home at 6 p.m., I was given the "everything you've ever done to tee me off" speech, just for leaving the toaster plugged in. I asked her what she did all day that prevented her from unplugging it herself. Another long speech about why I'm the butthole. I said something to the effect of, "Quit acting like your fricking mother." She threw the cat at me. A cat. She threw a fricking cat at me. Scuba Steve went on to live with me after the official separation and divorce.
Our marriage ended after our daughter at 3 years old told us to stop yelling. When she asks me to take the kids on some errands, has kept me celibate for months, saying she just doesn't want to do the deed with anyone anymore, and once I leave, invites some guy over to tongue lash her for 45 minutes, and then drop a load inside her in the bedroom without using protection, all on the day before Father's Day. Thanks, Amy. Not divorced yet, this happened last week. Her life is in such a shambles, I'm not even mad. I was on deployment and she yelled at me for interrupting her family's celebration when I called on Christmas. The first time I thought it, I was working late and the daycare calls and asked if I'm picking my kids up. I left work to go get them, and when I got home, she was gone. Didn't hear anything from her for 2 weeks. For the second time, I'd bailed the house out of foreclosure 3 times because she wouldn't pay the bills, even though there was money in the accounts to cover it. I closed the account, handed her cash for the mortgage, packed a bag with my kids, and left. We had a trial separation and lived apart for a month. During this time, I vented off some of my frustrations to one of my best friends. Come to find, said friend was effing my wife behind my back. They both attempted to manipulate my emotions so I wouldn't think anything was suspicious, but goddamn, my intuition always had my back. Always trust your gut, folks, even when your head isn't where it should be. When I found evidence of the last affair, as soon as I heard it, I knew it was the end and there would never be anything else there. I found out on a Sunday. First thing Monday, I was scouring the internet for a place to rent. I kept her in the dark for the next month until everything was set. When she got home from work, I handed her my ring and told her I wanted a divorce, and I left. We met and spent the first 7 years of our married life on the West Coast, then moved east. 5 years later, I took a job on the West Coast, but it was middle of the school year, so I went out ahead and lived on my own until everyone could join me. Things hadn't been very good between us for a while, but I hadn't articulated it to her, or even myself beyond vague feelings of dissatisfaction. One weekend, out there on my own, I decided to take a day and drive to one of my favorite towns, a town in which I'd lived long before I knew her, a town we had visited often while married. It was late afternoon, and I was about to head back to my hotel when I realized I could visit a particular beach that had a special meaning to me from my earlier life there. I stopped at a convenience store, grabbed a Grolschleich that I used to drink on that beach, and drove out there. Hiked out to a specific spot I remembered, sat down, popped the beer, and looked out over the ocean. And it hit me that I hadn't done that in over 20 years. Whenever we'd visit the area, I'd suggest stopping down at the beach, but she wasn't interested and would always veto the idea. I'm sure reading this it seems like the tiniest thing, but it was the catalyst for me realizing just how completely dissatisfied I was with our relationship. I think from the time I sat down, I knew it was over within maybe 10 minutes, just sitting there, sipping my beer, looking at the ocean. When we went on family vacation, and I hoped she'd sleep the entire time so I could have fun with our son. My sister said something similar about her ex. He had to go out of town for a business trip, and she found that being a single parent was less work than having him be around. Then he did the deed with one of her friends, and her first thought was, finally, an excuse to kick him out. Feels like vacations are a good litmus test to see if you're both still in love. There's a sports journalist I follow who takes his wife on holiday every year to do a sort of intervention to reassess their relationship and family goals. When I went on my final vacation with my family, parents and brother included, everyone just fought with each other, and it made me realize how dysfunctional we were, and that it was just better for me to move out ASAP. What was one rule that was implemented at your school that backfired horribly? My senior year of high school, we got moved into a new school building across from the grocery store. The builders put up walls over the plumbing for water fountains by accident, so there was a huge increase in reusable bottles, and the school put up a vending machine entirely full of water. Now I suppose it's time to mention that this was in Washington State, where you can sell liquor in grocery stores along with anything else. So, some freshman got the bright idea to start stealing vodka from the store across the street, fill disposable waters with it, and sell it to other students. This caused a huge problem with a large population of drunk underclassmen wandering the halls of the school and getting into trouble. Finally, the staff got together for a meeting about what to do. Someone suggested banning water bottles. So now students had no access to water during school hours, and everyone was enraged. There were articles written about it and parents complaining. People all over town were talking about how we had a ban on water. They eventually lifted the ban and the alcohol problem resumed. In conclusion, my school had kids selling booze in water bottles and banned water.
In the late 90s, humorous graphic tees became a popular thing, and the mall had a few stores that sold questionable taste shirts. Shirts that said several things the narrator can't repeat on YouTube. Splooge donor, a headless guy holding a sign that says "will work for head," that kind of thing. The school made a rule that if your shirt was inappropriate, you would have to turn it inside out. A kid in my class shows up to school with a shirt that says, "I'd rather be playing with myself." The teacher sends him to the bathroom to turn it inside out. He returns with an inside-out shirt that says, "I put the FU in fun." The teacher doesn't realize it's the same shirt, so he takes it off in class and shows her both sides. He had a few shirts custom-made with prints on both sides. She asks him if he has another shirt in his locker, and he says, "I have my gym clothes." She told him to get the other shirt and change. He walks back into class with a shirt that says, "You're driving me knucking futs." The teacher just says, "Go to the office." So he goes to the office and tells them that he was sent there because of his shirt. So they say, "Turn it inside out and go back to class." So he turns his shirt inside out and walks back to class with a shirt that says, "Free mustache rides." She said, "Did you go to the office?" And he said, "They told me to flip it inside out and come back to class." The teacher sighed and said, "Just sit down." She went about teaching and we thought he had won, but he ended up getting suspended for 3 days. When he returned from suspension, he wore shirts for probably a whole week that said, "I love teachers, support your local teachers union, cops are the good guys, substances are bad, wash behind your ears, etc." It was funny because he made these overtly positive shirts and the teachers and students would try to read into it too much to see what they really meant, as if it was just a tongue-in-cheek thing that they didn't get. Eventually, one of his positive shirts that he'd found said, "Support single mums," but he claims he didn't realize that there was a silhouette of a woman on a pole. He says that he thought it was just a woman, so he got suspended again. As a side note, the same kid bought a blow-up doll and took her to every football game, basketball game, pep rally, and a few other things, and gradually worked her into official school functions and brought her to school several times. For whatever reason, the teachers just gave up on that one. We passed her around over our heads at graduation. He even brought her a cap and gown. I'm friends with him on Facebook and he's a truck driver and bodybuilding enthusiast. The guy is jacked now at 39 years old. Sorry, nothing since then to add to his shenanigans. Haha, I have to admire the kid's pre-planning and commitment to that bit. Honestly, the shirt gig took some work and investment. He might have been a class clown, but I'm sure he's smart enough that he's doing fine. My middle school had a no-touching rule, which meant you'd get suspended for high-fiving a friend. Girls got in trouble for hugging their friends. Our teachers thought this was ridiculous and would have students high-five each other in their classes for a minute every day. So many kids got suspensions that the rules stopped being enforced and only counted if you touched a kid in a bullying situation or inappropriate way. Not sure it was exactly a rule, but my middle school once encouraged kids to not touch each other at all to reduce physical altercation cases, even friendly gestures among friends. All that did was get the kids running around touching each other around campus for about a month and a half, screaming, "I've been attacked!" as they did so. To add insult to injury, they did it twice as often in front of the admin who made the presentation about it. Our middle school banned high fives when I was in 8th grade for being disruptive, so everyone switched to the most obnoxious high elbows possible. In my dorm, if you did something that triggered the smoke or fire alarm, you had to do a safety presentation for everyone on your floor. This was intended to deter pranksters from pulling the alarm. A guy on our floor was making grilled cheese in the kitchenette and burned it, which legitimately triggered the fire alarm. Afterwards, he explained, assuming that since it had been a legitimate alarm and not a prank, that he wouldn't have to do a presentation. He was, of course, wrong. So the next Wednesday night, the entire floor assembled and we were treated to a 30-minute safety presentation on the dangers of grilled cheese sandwiches. It contained literally nothing about fire safety, it was all about choking hazards and cholesterol. Our residential advisor was furious, but the student pointed out that the write-up that had been given just said, "safety presentation." We didn't get any more presentations after that. My high school made students wear these neon t-shirts that read, "dress code violator," if their outfit didn't adhere to the school's policy. They became so popular that the school began selling them 1 week later. At my college dorm, we used to have this thing called Malt Mondays. Someone would go around knocking on doors at 8 or 9 p.m. asking if you wanted to order a 40-ounce. Then they would go on a run to the liquor store and buy them for people that had ordered them. We would then all hang out outside, drinking 40s and listening to music until security came and told us to take it inside. It was a fun tradition we had, but the dean hated it. He decided to fund his own Malt Mondays, but instead of malt liquor, he wanted to draw people in with free chocolate malts. What ended up happening is people who did the regular Malt Mondays and wanted a chocolate malt would just go to that one first, get a free treat, and then leave and go drink 40s. If you returned a library book late, your parents would have to return it and explain why it's late. It worked about as well as you'd think. The rule lasted a few months before they figured out it wasn't worth the cost of replacing all the books. My 4 years of high school were full of my school trying out new policies and procedures to use in the future. My sophomore year, my school decided to make tests count for 100% of the grade, and homework count for 0%, but it was still assigned. And as you'd expect, kids did absolutely no homework. The ones that didn't retain information well, or were bad test takers, struggled pretty hard to make the grade without homework padding it. Our failure rate was pretty high that year. Then, my junior year, they brought homework grades back and made a new rule that there was no due dates nor penalties for turning in late work for your 6 weeks. We didn't do quarters. As long as it was before the next 6 weeks started, you were good. This led to students doing no homework until the last few days of the 6 weeks, and teachers had to accept and grade them all before grades were due. This put teachers under an immense amount of stress by causing them to work insane hours and spend every hour at home grading, which made them very irritable and more likely to just shove pointless activities and busy work at us until they could finish grading. This was actually in the news a couple of months ago. We had a really hot summer last year, and the boys at my little brother's secondary school were mad that they couldn't wear shorts, but the girls could wear skirts. The junior leadership team brought it up at a meeting, and the head teacher jokingly went, "All right, if the boys want to wear skirts, then let them." A group of boys went to school wearing skirts the very next day. The day after that, it wasn't just one group of them. And that, children, is how Scotland was born. I can't for the life of me understand how nobody saw that coming. I mean, you give teens literally any out to make a scene and mess with their teachers, and it's gonna happen. A school in my area jacked up the cost of the parking pass. People protested by not buying the pass. Instead, they rode the bus. Funny thing is, the county really relies on juniors and seniors driving because they don't have enough buses for all the students. The parking pass fee dropped. People drove again. Don't ever let them tell you driving to school is a privilege. They need you to drive to school.
Now that's a lesson in economics.
High school took all of the stall doors off the boys' bathrooms because of graffiti or something, so I started pooping in the bathroom near the office. After a couple of times of the superintendent coming in while I was doing that, all the doors were put back on.
Did you maintain eye contact and nod as the superintendent walked by? "What's up, Mr. S? Got any good reading material?"
You now need 40 hours of community service to graduate. It's recommended that all freshmen do 10 hours a year, while the seniors start as soon as possible to get the 40 hours out of the way. The rule was gone the day before graduation because they would have had less than a 10% graduation rate that year, and it would have made the school look terrible. They did this to try and increase their reputation of being a good school. All the other schools in the area are trash though, so I don't really know why.
My school implemented the 40-hour volunteer rule when I was in high school too, except the way they did it was that the incoming seniors, my class, had to do 10, the class below us 20, next class 30, and the incoming freshmen would have to complete 40 by graduation. That way they avoided the situation you described, and as far as I know, the 40-hour rule is still in place. My high school told my senior class, "No senior pranks or none of you walk." Ha! Result: we didn't throw a prank. Instead, we threw the biggest rager of the year on school property with the permission of the county sheriff, as long as we took our bottles home when we were finished. The sheriff retired the next week. He was a real one. Aftermath, the administration was teed off but couldn't pin it on the senior class because Sheriff Reich couldn't remember which kids were there. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. They started a no chewing gum rule that made a lot of junior kids start a black market for gum. This has probably happened lots of times. One of my teachers spotted a guy chewing and gave him the usual, "Well, I hope you brought enough for everybody,"
Whereupon he got up with a fistful of gum and started handing it out. She didn't send him to the principal, but she never tried that line again. My junior high school adopted a policy to not allow kids to loiter in groups of 5 or more, in an attempt to crack down on gang mentality. This was frickin' junior high. Anyway, me and my group of misfits, 6 of us, were always hanging out during free time, and the principal eventually stopped us and asked us to separate. I had to casually explain to him that we were not a group of 6, but 2 groups of 3 that were intermingling. People caught wind, and that rule was basically dead. That was one of the few times I had to explain to my father why he was called into the principal's office with me. I hate to bring you in, sir, but I think you'll want to hear this. Your son has more than 3 friends. You really should be ashamed of how you've raised him. My senior year of high school, some guy in my class got an in-school suspension for wearing a headband. He had long curly hair, by the way. So the next couple of weeks, almost every guy on the football team started wearing headbands in protest. Keep in mind that girls could wear headbands, just not guys. No one really understood this rule. Did the rule get removed after the protest? It did. They tried suspending a couple of the guys on the football team, but as with most places, football was so important that they couldn't suspend everyone because this took place right in the heart of football season, so they eventually just gave up.
When I was in high school, a guy on the football team got suspended for fighting.
A few of his friends started vandalizing places around campus in protest. They used paint and markers to write messages about getting the suspension revoked or letting him free and other bullcrap. Anyway, the dean was super teed off. He called an assembly and ranted about how much trouble these people were in, saying the police were already involved and expulsion was a serious possibility. Well, when the 3 guys were caught, it turned out to be the star quarterback, star running back, and star lineman. I think they only ended up having to pick up trash after school for a couple of days. Yeah, this is funny but also incredibly unfair. I remember that an otherwise well-behaved kid could get lunchtime or after-school detentions for their first offense. But the kids on our sports teams, who were often not very well-behaved, could regularly get off with nothing if there was an important game that week. Complete horse crap. A local pharmacy was built on the same street as my school, and local pharmacies got robbed a couple of times a year where I live. To make our school more secure, they started locking every door and making it punishable by detention for any instance of a student opening an outside door for someone else during school hours. Everyone had to go through the front door to the lobby to show ID and sign in before they got into the actual school. I liked how secure the school was, but when our principal was walking superintendents around to show them our new media production and medical sciences wing of the school, they got locked out after stepping outside to look at an outdoor set. That spot was on the complete opposite side of the school from the front office. During class change, they tried knocking on the door to get a student to open it. Everyone ignored them and then followed the rules. These old men and ladies had to walk around the school in 95-degree, 90% humidity weather, sweating their suits off. Our principal did commend all the students for following the rules at the next school assembly and said he was proud to show how safe the school was. Cool dude. We have a similar policy where outside doors are locked and people have to be screened in through the front door. The only issue is when you come to the front, they just let you in without checking any ID or anything. It's just extra walking. No running during recess. The rule was made because some kid in the 2nd grade ran and tripped. So for whatever reason, they restricted running for all grades, kindergarten through 5th. Everyone should know that when you ask a 5 to 10-year-old not to do something, that's the next thing they're going to do. They started running in the halls, the cafeteria, the classrooms, and you bet your butt they ran outside. After a week, the teachers stopped enforcing it and everyone stopped caring. Kids need to run. They just need a designated time and place for it. Something like a break in between classes designed for physical activity, maybe. An insane amount of time and hand-wringing went into my office's dress code policy. When the final draft was ultimately released, every department head had a valid reason why their staff should be exempted. So the policy wound up only affecting myself and the guy that insisted on making the policy. I violate this policy on a daily basis. When I was in kindergarten, during the morning announcements one day, they came on and said, "And please, no throwing snowballs. There's a chance you might accidentally get some rocks in them." And you could see the faces on all 20-something students, the realization of, oh my god, we could put rocks in them. Haha, kids are such buttholes. I went to a private school for elementary where uniforms were strict. If you didn't wear a belt, you'd go to the principal's office and he would make you use a shoestring. Well, when he opened the drawer, there were like 6 different colors and everyone thought it was really neat. So for a short period of time, there were a bunch of kids coming to school with no belt so they could wear their lime green shoestring belt. My high school has a policy where you couldn't wear hats at school unless the school's mascot logo was on it. So a bunch of people just bought a patch of the logo and paperclipped them to their hats. In my high school, they banned backpacks in classrooms. Everyone was teed off. Some girls started bringing bigger purses to put their books in, so a bunch of dudes brought their mums' purses in and were using those for school books. Administration and teachers got upset because we found loopholes, so they banned purses too. At which point, a bunch of mums got upset because their daughters had to carry around sanitary products and other stuff in their coat pockets, in addition to all of their books, notebooks, calculators, pens, pencils, and whatever else they have in those purses. Finally, the school let everyone have their backpacks back. They made a new rule where we had to ask permission to use the restroom during lunch. We all coordinated and the whole cafeteria would raise their hands at once and request to go. They responded by sending us 2 at a time. We did this for a few days, then changed our procedure to everyone just getting up at once and going to the restroom without permission. They didn't ever officially do away with the rule, but the teachers on duty at the lunchroom just stopped enforcing it. Zero tolerance, which means if you're involved with fighting, you'll be kicked out. No questions asked. They thought it would mean no more fighting. No, it means that if the bully is beating up a kid, no one would step in for fear of involving with the fight and getting kicked out. No one would snitch because it means the bully will target you next, and now you're involved in fighting and get kicked out. It's a crap policy. I remember reading once on here that some kid was getting bullied and not even fighting back. He fell victim to this, so the parents went into the principal's office to talk to them about it. They reiterated what this zero tolerance meant. So the dad turns to their son and says, "Okay, next time they bully you, absolutely destroy them. Break their faces." What? You can't tell them to do that. You just told my son that no matter what, he's going to get suspended. So this is what he has to do to protect himself. Yeah, I can see the argument for this kind of policy, but it really has to be enforced by security cameras or a really vigilant investigative process after the fact, to make sure that victims aren't the ones who end up getting punished. My high school attempted to ban trip pants and the like. However, due to a hilariously overlooked typo, the student handbook that got sent to students and parents just said, "Students may not wear pants." We had a good laugh and it made the local news. Unfortunately, this does show the quality of high school I went to. I wasn't ready for college. Students may not wear pants? Shows up in a kimono. Or interpret it the British way and go to school commando, though that's really unnoticeable. My high school had a really bad problem with students showing up to class 5 minutes late every day, so they tried 3 different solutions. First, they stopped letting us use lockers. They quickly found out that just meant nobody brought their books to class. Next, they decided to ban the use of restrooms during class periods. Teachers started complaining about everyone asking for a bathroom pass as soon as class started, so that was abandoned after a week or so as well. Lastly, one week they made a ton of announcements Monday through Wednesday that all students were to be on time for class. Then on Thursday, they suspended any student who was late for insubordination. Turns out that included half the football team. This occurred right before the biggest game of the year. In a town of like 4,000 people, this game attracts 16,000. So yeah, they gave that up as well. There was a rule they put in place my freshman year of high school that if you arrived late, i.e. after first bell, you couldn't park in the parking lot. You'd have to park at the gas station down the highway and walk to school, making you even more late. It stopped after 20 or so people intentionally showed up late and made a mass exodus along the highway. On top of that, a lot of parents whining about it. If you had 4 tardies in one semester, including first or 0 hour, you would receive a Saturday morning detention. I'd accumulated 3 tardies during a semester of my sophomore year because my ride would be a few minutes late. I proceeded to skip school any time my ride or myself would be late, and eventually a vice principal noted my absences. Naturally, he asked why I was missing so many days of class. I explained to him that I wasn't going to get a detention for going to school. His only recourse was to suggest that I try to be on time more often. Felt good to walk out of his office knowing that conversation didn't go how he expected. We implemented the buddy bench for lonely people to sit on and make friends. It was pretty damn expensive and nicely decorated. Someone stole it. As an adult, I love that idea in theory.
As a former high school student, I fear for the safety of the poor kids who are so lonely they'll sit on a bench that specifically isolates and highlights their loneliness. Yeah, that sounds like a nice idea if you're talking about confident adults who just happen to not have someone to have some small talk with and want to do so. I've seen the same thing in public transport stations, and I often see like an old man or something sitting there just looking to have a short, nice conversation while waiting for the train. For kids going through puberty, though, people will think it's sad and it'll just isolate them further. My school banned all balls over a couple of inches in diameter because someone kicked a football through a window during lunch. Most of us that walked home walked past the woods by the golf course and had a ready supply of golf balls as a result. Golf balls were allowed under the new rules due to their size. 3 broken windows in one lunch period, and later, they weren't allowed. There was a sign in the boys' bathroom asking not to bounce balls on the walls. You can bet that wall got humped a lot. What was your worst, sucks to be right moment? I have, to this day, been 100% accurate on how terrible guys that my lady friends, ones that I'm not interested in, should avoid. One of my friends got syphilis from one guy because he was messing around with 3 other girls at the time. Another entered into a very upsetting and tumultuous relationship with another scumbag. There are others, but they just never seem to believe me when I can pinpoint scumbags. I bet we're being acquired and all losing our jobs. Whole company meetings aren't fun. Internet-based company, the internet went down for 30 minutes. Everyone was getting ready to go, and I was just about to shut down my machine when the net came back online. I decided to announce said fact. You sound like a butthole. He sounds like the guy who reminds the teacher about homework that was due. It was one of those not thinking at all moments, guys. I was staring at my screen while Windows closed, and up popped, "Connected to the network." Stupid, yes. Malicious, no. When my girlfriend told me she was pregnant for the first time, I told her we had to wait to tell her parents because we needed to get a lot more support from various other people before telling them. I knew her mother's reaction would be bad. She told her mother over the phone the next day. Just as I'd predicted, her mother reacted very, very badly and proceeded to ruin the next 3 years of my girlfriend's life. I wondered out loud if my little sister had an eating disorder. Whoops. I was doing dishes one night when my sister came home. She said, "Guess who died today?" I randomly said, "Michael Jackson." Let it be known that I never saw or heard the news that day. Another one, my friend was posting sad things on the internet. My other friend and I weren't sure why, and I took a guess. Maybe his guinea pig died. Sure enough, it was announced the next day. I remember when Michael Jackson's death got announced at my work, there was a moment of grim silence before a coworker shouted out, "Yes! My records just went up in value." Good times. My mum got pregnant and told me at about the 5 to 6 weeks stage. The first thing I did was rain on her parade and warned her not to tell everybody until it's past the safe stage. She told fricking everybody. People even threw parties for her. 2 weeks later, she lost it. I wore a seatbelt when no one else in the car did. There were 4 of us in the car. I was fine, 2 others were decently hurt, and one guy was tossed through the windshield and hasn't walked since. I'm sorry to hear that. Was drinking involved? Sorry for asking. Not at all, actually, which is the question we always get. It was icy and visibility was crap. High speed was the ultimate issue in the end. I told my mum that if she didn't do something about her weight, she'd get diabetes. I didn't think she'd lose her legs, though. This hits close to home. My father is a diabetic and he doesn't take care of himself at all. I hope your mother is doing okay despite everything. Well, she did end up losing the weight in the end. I was sure my sister was the product of my mother cheating on my father. My mother was very close friends with a neighbor and would spend lots of time at his place at night. When my sister, who is considerably younger than me, was born despite my father being away for most of the year, I was pretty sure. She finally admitted it to me over summer. My ex-wife defended a guy that was remodeling her mum's house after I said that I thought he smelt like horse crap. I saw the way she looked at him and called her out on it, asking if there was anything I needed to worry about. That Friday, we got into some bullcrap argument, and guess where she went? She spent the weekend with him. Marriage over. When I said that my mother wasn't coming back, read ever, to pick up my siblings.
My mother wasn't the best one on the planet. She gave me up to my grandparents when I was young, and later, after I turned 18 years old, she left them at my doorstep with no warning or explanation. It wasn't the first time they'd been left at my place with no warning, but somehow I just knew that in this case, she wouldn't be back in a week after whatever substance binge she indulged in. I just knew that this time she wouldn't come back at all. I ended up spending 3 years working 2 different jobs at a time instead of going to college in order to take care of them. I didn't see her again for 10 years after she initially left them at my place. To be honest, I could have done without seeing her for another 10 years. I told my mom that she would die before the year ended if she didn't listen to doctors' advice about her medical problems. She died on December 8th. Recently, and I never found the article in question, a friend was browsing on his phone and said, looks like we just signed a law that makes it legal to pay offshore workers 15% less than local workers. To which I replied, well, I guess that means I just lost my job. I walked in Monday and bam, we're all getting laid off. 35-year-old here, so I have a more long-term strategy, but every day I see people, friends and family, struggle with stupid crap that I've tried to let them know about, in as friendly a way as possible, for years. I've known probably 100 people throughout my adult life, and about 20 are kind of screw-ups. I won't go into all, but one of my friends has an ego and thinks he's always right. He interrupts everyone with really argumentative statements to prove his intellectual superiority. Picture a person whose life really reflects a Redditor. Instead of comments being posted anonymously, he says it right to their faces. I knew this guy, who is damn smart, 99 percentiles in every test, yada yada, and would suffer from unemployment and relationship issues. He's been like this since he was 19. He's 36 now and just struggles with life. He's unemployed because every boss hated him. He goes out with girls on one date and then gets incredulous when they aren't into him. He goes on a date with a nice girl, but since she's not a knockout 10 out of 10, he dismisses her. I saw this in his early 20s and I knew he would suck when life got serious. And it did. And what really sucks is that he's a really nice guy who means well. I try to help him out and steer him to humility, openness, and pleasant conversations, but to no avail. Despite what I've said, he's a good friend who really deserves better. And yes, it freaking sucks that I'm right. This is one of the few times that I've wanted to be wrong in terms of reading a person. Check out the woeful prophet here. Honestly, it can't be easy making friends with the kind of person who calls people on their crap either. It's gotta be a lose-lose, right? I thought my ex was cheating on me, and well darn, I was right. Same. My girlfriend and I worked together at a bar. Sunday we were working and she's flirting with a wine rep. I called her out on it and she tells me to calm down. Wednesday, I get off work and she didn't come home until 3:30 a.m. I found out she was out with the same wine rep all night. Yesterday, I broke up with her. It sucks to be right. She was later fired for being too drunk at work on a Sunday. Bullet dodged. When I was in high school, I thought my secret crush was a person playing a prank.
Oh, right in the nostalgicals.
When my ex-wife was acting strangely after a year clean, I found Lortabs and Vicodin in her purse. One day, after talking to my friend on the phone, I get this niggling feeling that something wasn't right. She had been depressed lately, but suddenly she was cheerful and happy. I was really worried she was planning something stupid. She ended things that night. I'm really sorry to hear that. I've heard before that if a person like that is suddenly in a positive, outgoing mood, it can be attributed to the fact that they're happy to know their time will soon be up. Simply devastating to think about. Hung out with a former coworker I hadn't seen in a while. He told me he liked to stand on the train tracks until he heard or saw a train coming, and that had been waiting longer and longer to move. I told him it was a bad idea, but didn't make a big deal about it. A few months later, he waited too long. My mum was a severe alcoholic who also happened to tend bar. About 6 years before she passed, she started to have seizures while in withdrawal. Electrolyte imbalance in my best guess. She had one on a concrete floor and it fractured her L2 and L3 vertebra. When this happened, she gave up on life. She lived with her father, laid in bed 22 hours a day, and tried to fight for SSD. She put on a lot of weight. I tried and tried to pull her out of this hike she had created for herself. I offered to take or pay for classes with her, tried to involve her with my social life, my wedding planning and the like, to no avail. Always an excuse. Suddenly, she was in contact with a guy from her past. They'd dated when I was 6, so this is about 20 years later. In 60 to 70 days, she dropped about 50 pounds, swimming 8 hours a day. She changed her looks, basically started taking care of herself, in preparation for meeting up with him in his home state. Which would have been great, but it struck me as wrong. She wasn't doing it for herself, it was for him. She was supposed to go for 15 days, but she kept delaying coming back. So much so that she missed my wedding. When she came back, she showed up at my place with a celebratory bottle of champagne. I refused to drink it with her, as the doctors told her 6 years ago, "You either keep drinking to avoid the seizures or go cold turkey." I am not an enabler. This started off as a conversation that led to me expressing my fears. She went atomic on me and left, off to Florida, into the arms of this guy. She was with him for 2.5 months, then had a seizure, came home, and died. And I am so freaking mad at her. I can barely think about her without my throat closing up. The worst part is, after she died, everyone who cared tells me they could see it coming. Really? Really? Why didn't you say something? Maybe if you all had, she might have screamed, yelled, or even cut you out of her life, but at least she might be here. That and my brother and sister telling me they drank with her. In conclusion, I told my mum I was afraid of what might happen if and when her relationship didn't work out. And that relationship ended 3 months later, and my mum died 2 months after that. Fricking alcohol. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My wife's family has this ongoing drama with the oldest sibling, her sister who is 32 this year. The sister, who we'll call Sarah, decided to marry a 20-year-old smackhead, literally, 2 years ago. For some reason, she thought that marrying him would change him. Big surprise, it didn't. Myself, along with every other member of the family, tried to tell her that just because she married him, it didn't mean he'd stop cheating on her, abusing her, emptying her bank account, stealing her crap, and then disappearing for an entire week at the time. She didn't really listen. So what did she decide to do? She decided to get pregnant. Yeah, he got clean for a bit, a whole 6 months. I even started to think I might have been wrong about him. Nope. 6 months after his child was born, Sarah calls my wife up, sobbing that he'd been gone for days, and she didn't have any money in her checking account. Don't get me wrong, I care about Sarah and I love her as if she were my sister by blood. But I do think she's the dumbest person on the planet. So what did she decide to do? Get pregnant again. Oh yeah, this time the baby will really force him to change his ways. Fricking genius. Now, before anyone says that we should have done more to help her, you don't know the whole story. It's literally worse than any of the worst Lifetime channel stories about battered women. Let's just say I'm not the only member of the family to fly cross-country, we live in the Pacific Northwest and they live on the East Coast, to help her pack her crap up and drive her dumb butt back to this side of the continent, only to watch her drive her dumb butt back in a few months. Yes, this happened more than once. We've pretty much, as a family, told her not to call us the next time he cheats on her or leaves her and the kids for days or empties their bank account. When I stated that one chief on my submarine was not fit to stand chief of the watch, 1 month later there was a flood in the sub caused by said chief. A lot of these responses are quite brief and have very little in the way of follow-up. It kind of feels like a potentially disastrous and life-ending event like this needs to be expanded on. My brother bragged to me that he was making a lot of money for himself selling substances. I told him to stop, he'd get arrested and would get kicked out of his college. He didn't stop. My best friend was looking very, very sickly after his diagnosis. I tried to be optimistic when they were talking about treatment options, but my gut was telling me he wouldn't make it. It was right. Same thing happened with my grandma. They were optimistic after surgery, but I wasn't. I was right. I still feel like a jerk even though I don't believe my optimism would have made a difference. I have two. Here's the fun one. Boss, I really don't think this expensive third-party service is going to hold up. It's having database problems like crazy and their tech support is just not helpful at all. Whatever, we'll be fine.
12 seconds later.
Oh my god, the whole thing exploded and… Yeah, I know, I built a backup server in my spare time just in case. Employee of the Year. And here's the unfun story. I suspected my ex was lying to me and underplaying her alcohol problem. After multiple, "Hey, sweetie, this bottle under your sink isn't really Poland Spring, is it?" followed by a massive fight, she had to become my ex. I know I got off easy in comparison to a lot of people who have family or significant others with drinking problems. This whole group of stories is full of them. When Princess Di died, my mother said,
You know, if Mother Teresa were to die tomorrow, no one would notice because of this insane media frenzy. A week later, Mother Teresa died. Hardly anyone noticed. The media was deluged with pictures of Princess Di's funeral. My roommates and I need to pay our rent with one check. Since one of my roommates usually can't come up with the money until the last minute, we don't have time to write each other checks and wait for them to clear. That means we usually give each other roughly $600 in cash. Last month I offered to meet my roommate at his bank with the cash, which I normally don't offer to do. He said no and that he'd just deposit it on his way to work the next day. Well, 3 days later, I get a frantic phone call from him saying that his man purse was stolen and he had never deposited the cash, which included mine and my roommate's and his own money. A total of $1,700 gone. That doesn't even include his previous 2 paychecks, which he had never deposited. Funny thing, the week prior to this, he was boasting about having a few grand in the bank, which is why he had waited so long to deposit the cash and his paychecks. Not anymore. I was dating a girl for a few months and everything was going good, to my knowledge. Then one day, she simply stopped talking to me. Last conversation consisted of, "I'm going to the movies with some friends tonight." "Alright, well, let's do something this weekend." "Okay, I love you." That was the last time I talked to her in over 9 months. She never answered a phone call, text message, or anything, and completely deleted me out of her life. There was no real breakup. 9 months later, I started thinking, oh crap, what if I got her pregnant and she bailed on me? So I got on Facebook to try and see if there were preggo pictures or baby pictures. Nothing. Completely private profile. I friend request her. She actually accepts, to my surprise. I browse through the pictures and see nothing. She messages me and asks if we can get together. We meet up and I ask her what the heck happened. She said that she got pregnant, freaked out, and bailed on me. She then went to a clinic so she wouldn't have to have the baby. I still can't talk to her to this day. I have a 23-year-old acquaintance who hangs out with teenagers aged 16 to 19 most of the time. It's weird. Twice before, he's asked out girls shortly after their 18th birthdays. I came up with a theory that he becomes close friends with them when they're 16 to 17, hangs out with them a lot, gets to know them, and then they'll already be good friends by the time they're 18 and they'll want to go out with him. He just asked out a friend of mine the day she turned 18. She said no. I'm so proud of her. Thought my ex was cheating on me. A couple of days later, I found out that she slept with 5 different guys in one night and had been sleeping with other guys consistently. I met up with some friends to go to a concert and my best bud wasn't there yet. He wouldn't answer his phone at all and I was getting really teed off, and I ended up having to give his ticket away. Throughout the night a couple of times, I was jokingly saying, he's either dead or in jail. He got into a bad accident on the way from work and died that afternoon. I was worried that the Star Wars prequels wouldn't live up to the original trilogy. I was worried that the Star Wars prequels wouldn't live up to the prequel trilogy. I saw the prequels first. I was severely disappointed in the CG and lack of double-sided lightsabers in the original. Well, we've done it, folks. We've reached the inevitable cesspit of Star Wars finger-pointing that you find if you look anywhere on the internet for long enough. Oh, I really shouldn't take another shot. 5 seconds later. I outed my dad at Thanksgiving several years ago. He denied it, but a few years later, after spending too much time with one of his friends, my mum kicked him out of the house. They divorced shortly thereafter. As a child, I was standing next to the neighbor's trampoline, examining the springs. Tugging on one, I said, "This one's loose." I distinctly remember that my hand was back at my side when it popped loose, ricocheted off my face, and flew over the neighbor's one-story house. When I was 18, my father was showing all of the symptoms of someone with untreated diabetes. Tingling feet, lack of energy, constantly thirsty, and several trips to the bathroom a day. He went to his doctor, and the doctor said he was perfectly fine, even though I pointed out to the doctor all of these obvious signs. I had an argument with the doctor, and he sent us home. A week later, my father went into diabetic shock and nearly died. The worst part was that when the doctor came to the ER to speak to the ICU attending, he told them there were no previous signs of diabetes, at which point we got into a huge argument. My mum called me while I was in class and left a voicemail on my cell phone. She had called from her cell phone and I knew as soon as I saw her name pop up that something awful had happened, because she hated that phone and never used it if she could avoid it. The message was that my dad had just died from a heart attack. I told my brother his girlfriend was going to hurt him if he stayed with her. 3 months later, he came home from AITA to find her sucking some eggplant in his car outside their shared apartment. That particular eggplant belonged to her stepbrother.
I didn't think a girl liked me, so I asked her out. I was right.
Well, at least you got an answer. To me, not knowing is worse than rejection.
My friend was drunk and got into a fight with her boyfriend at her birthday party. I told her she was too drunk to drive and we argued about it for a while, but she had gotten a brand new BMW 6 Series for her birthday and wasn't going to leave it parked there or let someone else drive it. Shortly after that argument, no one could find her and everyone was leaving the party. It took forever to get home because half a mile away, the road was blocked due to an upside-down BMW 6 Series in the middle of the road. She was fine, by the way. Coming up on a year since my best friend took her own life. I knew she knew where her dad's hunting weapons were because she told me. Several months passed. We'd talk every day on the phone and she would be singing to my son. One night she calls me and I answer the phone. We talk about boys and the usual stuff. After I asked if she wanted to talk to my son, she said yes and I handed him the phone. He was 6 months old. She sang to him one last time. We said our goodbyes and I love yous. The next morning, I was calling her to talk about something, but I couldn't reach her. I called a couple of times throughout the day, but this is normal for her. She wouldn't talk on the phone. A couple of days pass and she's not answering her phone. I didn't really think much of it because it was usual. Her boyfriend wrote to me on Facebook to call him and I already knew. I knew that I'd lost my best friend and I knew that she was gone. Right after she got off the phone with me, she had taken her own life. She was bipolar, but everything seemed to be working lately. I hate to say it, but I knew she was going to take care of herself, but not when she was going to do it. My son still listens to her sing to him because of a video of herself singing left up on YouTube. I still get to see her smiling face and hear her beautiful voice. My parents explained that they were going to use morphine to help my grandfather. I realized as we all stood sobbing around his bed that what it really was that he was so sick we were letting him pass the easiest way. The morphine slowed down his breathing and heart rate until he died. Did we kill him if he was dying anyways? No, this is how most people die in the end. As you get older and see more family members die, this is the way it happens most often. We now have advances in medical science that can keep our bodies technically alive for far longer than is really helpful. And if you actually took them off life support, it could cause pain. But mostly, they do this with morphine, so it's as peaceful as possible for the family. What levels of cheapness have astonished you? When I was a little kid, I used to spend summers at my grandparents' house, and one of my chores was to set the table before dinner every night. Whenever we were having company over for dinner, I was instructed to use the good napkins. That meant the napkins that didn't have restaurant logos printed on them. We only went to restaurants when my grandmother felt she could come out ahead of the deal, and there were many ways to accomplish this. She clipped coupons, of course, but that was kids' stuff. Anytime she did anything for someone, she'd get them to take her to dinner to return the favor. She had an enormous purse which generally came back stuffed with napkins and food from the buffet. She didn't see much point in going to any restaurant that didn't at least have a salad bar. One year, when my mother and I offered to take her to dinner for her birthday, we ended up having to drive over an hour to get to a sizzler she hadn't been banned from. At my local Dunkin' Donuts, you have to ask the workers specifically if you want a packet of sugar or sweet and low, or one of those little half-and-half containers, because the senior citizens in the area used to come in and take them all so that they wouldn't have to buy them in the store, and the workers had to take them all away. My 13-year-old daughter was invited to a small birthday party at a mediocre chain restaurant, Ruby Tuesdays, for her best friend. The girlfriend is here quite often and regularly eats dinner, breakfast, lunch, etc. if she's here, and sleeps over about twice a week during the summertime. She's been included to trips at the amusement park and water parks nearby. We have season tickets, but there's always something to eat like funnel cakes. She comes to movies with us and the occasional trip to Dairy Queen, and I've never asked to be paid or have her pay her own way. We treat her as one of her own. Imagine my disgust when my daughter calls me from the restaurant bathroom, nearly in tears, telling me they've just told her that she'll have to pick up her own check, after dinner and dessert have been served. The check was $13. The father actually said separate checks to the waitress, but my daughter didn't know what that meant. She had a few bucks on her, but she was short about $5. The other girl's father told my daughter that she would have to stay and wash dishes or something, and got real ugly with her, like she'd misled them or something. I have the parents' cell phone numbers, and I called him and asked him real nice-like if he could spot her $10 until he brought her home, and I'd pay him back. He refused and made it like somehow my daughter and I was scamming him. He suggested that I call the front desk and square it away because they were leaving and were going to leave my daughter there if she couldn't pay, so he wouldn't have the cops chasing him down on his daughter's birthday. I did call the front desk and gave them my credit card, included a healthy tip, and told my daughter I'd be there to pick her up in 10 minutes. Don't go anywhere. When I got there, this complete jerk was trying to get my daughter to leave with his family now that the bill was paid. His daughter was in tears. Needless to say, it got ugly. Good God, I've been all over the socio-economic ladder of society and interacted with people on all of the rungs, and never once have I had a first-hand view to something like this. Don't be like this, people. My aunt and uncle were visiting with their 2 kids. My uncle asked me if I wanted to go to a Friendly's for ice cream. He bought himself and his 2 kids ice cream and then asked if I had money for myself. I was 9, so no, I didn't have money. He said, "Too bad," and started back towards his car. I realized he just needed me for direction. He's a frickin' butthead. My mum had a boyfriend that would pull the stems off cherries before purchasing them from the grocery store because he felt they'd weigh less without the stems and he'd get more for the money. My friend, who used to work at the supermarket, once told me about a customer who used to peel bananas before he bought them for the same reason. I mean, that's definitely unsanitary. A group of friends went out for dinner at a convention and several people had leftovers. When we returned, one of the people who had not been able to get dinner was bummed, so one of the diners said, "Well, I have some leftovers if you'd like them." "Oh, sure, thanks." "Okay, my meal was $10 and there's about half left, so you owe me…" No, I'm not kidding. And no, it wasn't me either. In the department where I work, I always have a small basket of candy, Jolly Ranchers, Tootsie Rolls, Lifesavers, out for my customers. Most are appreciative and ask, "Are these free?" and take 1, maybe 2, and thank me for the candy. Then there are some customers who just walk up and take handfuls of the candy. Once I had an older man dump the entire thing into his man purse, look straight at me, and walk out. When I was getting a flu shot once, I watched a really old guy in a wheelchair pocket like 20 hard candies, while the nurse set up his next appointment. It made my day, but it wasn't my candy, and he was super old. Speaking of hard candy, I had squirrels break into my college apartment over winter break in my senior year when I happened to have 21 pounds of hard candy that I got for my 21st birthday. Well, these squirrels went crazy on it and I came back to find candy wrappers everywhere, but concentrated most heavily on my couch. I guess they were relaxing on my couch while destroying my candy supply. We found candy all over our apartment until the day we moved out. I found one piece under our toilet brush. How? It's not just people that steal candy, apparently. I knew a farmer who only had 1 light bulb. He would carry it around with him all the time, taking it from one room to another if he needed to. The company I work for won't buy us pens. Start using crayons. I don't have any crayons lying around at work, but I have filled out a record sheet in nothing but pink highlighter. Last night, this happened at a fair. The man at the front of the line for ice cream offered to pay for all the kids in the family behind him because he was taking a while to order. He gave the booth $40 and said whatever was left over should go to the charity. The church was running the ice cream booth. The people with the kids' ice cream totaled $21 and they insisted for the change back. It wasn't even their money. When the lady refused, Mum asked for the manager. What the frick? She didn't get the money, but she walked away teed off. To top it all off, the guy in front of her had already taken a while, hence his generosity, and then her bickering took even longer until they were moved off to the side, so a huge line behind her was teed off as well. She was a witch on multiple levels. Witchception. I work in a subway and an evil woman came in one day. It was busy and she took forever to order, asking a million questions and complaining about everything while an entire line is behind her. She gets to pay, but, "Oh, I don't have enough money for that." The nice old man behind her offers to pay for food sincerely, and she thanks him. She goes to sit down and then gets up and complains to us while there's a busy line because she wants us to turn the ceiling fans off. They've never been off in the 3 years I worked there. To finally kick it off, she gets back up before leaving, orders 2 more footlongs and pays for it with no problem with the same wallet she said had no money in it. We were all shocked at this evil woman. See, our McDonald's is awesome. We had a similar situation where someone was slightly short on their meal. It was like £21.80 and they apparently only had 20 quid. So the cashier was really nice and let them have it anyway. So the person behind gave the cashier the missing £1.80. Later, the same guy comes up to try and order a McFlurry. Midway through the order, the person who served them last walks over to the till and presses cancel. "I'm sorry, sir, we don't do free meals." He looks over and asks what he's talking about. Well, you said you only had 20, remember? And you spent that. He looked like he was about to explode. It was brilliant. You can't con our McDonald's. I work at a hardware store. Someone came in needing parts for gas line repair. Once I got him set up with all the pipes and fittings, I asked if he had the right tape for it. You need a special type of Teflon tape to have the perfect seal and prevent gas leaks. He replied, no, can you get me some? I grabbed the tape and he asks why I grabbed the yellow tape, $4.99, instead of the blue tape, 99 cents. I told him that blue is for the water line and using it could very likely cause a gas leak. After trying to convince him for 10 minutes to just spend the $4 extra on something that would likely save his life, I walked away. I came back from my break, and it turns out the guy put back all of the black iron, gas pipes and fittings that I'd chosen for him, and got the galvanized steel, water pipes and fittings instead, for a total of $15 cheaper, as well as the blue tape. 2 weeks later, there was a story on the news about a guy whose house had a gas leak and exploded. Luckily, the man was out with his family at the time and no one was injured. I'm not sure if it was the same man from the store, but I think it's likely. In conclusion, a guy came into the hardware store for gas line repairs, ended up using pipes and fittings for water line instead of gas to save about $15 on a $250 purchase. Possibly caused his house to explode. I mean, if it was the same guy, I think you have a lifetime license to be smug, right? Imagine going out of your way to save $15 and blowing up your house. And there's a reasonable chance he was too much of a cheapskate for insurance. I have a cousin who invited their friend over to their side of the family's house for Christmas dinner. She then charged her invited friend $5 for their meal. Who does that? I work at a casino and I'm constantly amazed at how many people raid ashtrays for the last bits of tobacco in cigarette butts. And I work in a bar where people will walk in and start drinking out of beers left out on the tables of regulars that go out for smokes and stuff until we catch them and throw them out. My best friend in like 1st or 2nd grade invited me to spend the night at his house. When it was time to brush our teeth, I realized that I'd forgotten my toothbrush. He told his mum about it and I thought I was in luck when his mum brought us a brand new toothbrush, but she opened it, handed it to him, and told him to give me his old one. I was skeptical, but I used it. I have a friend who is full-on gluten intolerant. However, he's so cheap he'll go to any lengths to avoid paying for food, or anything else. When he found out he could dumpster dive unlimited bread in San Francisco, that became the staple, nay, the entirety of his diet. He spends his days moaning in agony as his insides churn and roil, suffering from constant fiery diarrhea. Yet he continues to eat his glutinous meals merely because they're free.
So I guess you could say he's on a gluten-free diet then, eh?
You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Oh, I have a great one. My dad was scheduled to get a hip replacement, and the day before the operation, I came home to find him mowing the lawn with a push mower. He was grimacing in pain and his face was red. When I asked him why the heck he was mowing, he replied, "I'm getting a new hip, so I wanted to wear the old one out and save the new one a mow." I lived with 3 other people during my junior year of college, and one of them insisted on keeping the AC off in the summer and the heat off in the winter, even though we lived in campus housing and didn't pay for any utilities, just so that she could prepare herself for the following year when she would be living in her own apartment and never using it to save money. I got fed up, found the manual for the thermostat online, and set it to never be allowed to go above a certain temperature in the summer and never go below a certain temperature in the winter.
Hey, I'm gonna make everyone suffer so that I'm used to suffering next year. Sounds like a really selfish person.
When my grandmother was alive, she would come and visit once or twice a year, this despite her having all sorts of medical complications like osteoporosis and kidney dialysis. She really loved her son. Anyway, when she arrived, she had a bag of frozen Olive Garden breadsticks with her for us kids. At that time in my life, I went, "Ew, gross." But now that she's passed, I asked my dad why she kept doing that. The answer was, "When she took you to Olive Garden once, you said to her that you really liked those breadsticks." I was shocked. Turns out Grandma wasn't so much cheap as old, weird, and crazy in love with her grandkids. My grandma did something like this. I went to her house one time and she presented me with a giant jar of pennies. I was really confused. Turns out that 5 or 6 years earlier, when I was quite young, I told her I collected pennies. She kept every single penny she got since. At IKEA, coffee is bottomless. Now a cup is free with the IKEA family card. But before that, it was like $2. My girlfriend's friend and her family would go in and buy one cup, and it would be passed along to each member to get their turn. They would apparently be there for hours socializing over a single cup of coffee.
This is actually a really clever way to pass on immunity to disease. Well, except for herpes. The herpes will always get ya.
My grandparents lived through the Depression. They waste nothing. Their freezer is a menagerie of ancient treasures. Last year we ate Thanksgiving at their house. My mum did all the cooking, but my grandma contributed a couple of desserts. One was a marshmallowy jello sort of thing with pistachios. When we got done eating, she proudly declared that it had been sitting in the freezer since 1996. She was afraid we'd find out and would waste it by not eating it. Weird thing is, it was still tasty as heck. Long story short, our grandmother fed us a 15-year-old pudding. I thought it was hilarious at the time, but it's kind of surprising we didn't get sick. My dad was actually annoyed that I found it odd at all. To give you an idea of what being raised in that house was like. This was when my grandparents were moving out of their house into a retirement home too, so they were being forced to use up what they'd saved for a long time. I think that probably played a part. They're both still alive today, Grandma's 92 and Grandpa's 94, so they must be doing something right. A lady I used to know was thrown out of a buffet for filling her purse with food. She was actually offended and called the manager. I went to a birthday dinner for my mother-in-law at a Filipino restaurant. Along with my wife and I, 4 of her friends were there. The friends ordered a mountain of food for the table. There were 7 of us there, but if there were a dozen, we couldn't have finished it all. This was a bit irritating right off the bat because while I was happy to pitch in for her birthday dinner, I didn't want to pay 20% of the gosh darn feast from Westeros that they'd ordered. It would end up being over $200 worth of food. So then the check comes and I pitch in my credit card, and 3 out of the 4 friends turn into statues, except the oldest gentleman, who offers something like $15. I grab the bill and divide it by 5, leaving out the dishes and drinks that my wife and I ordered for ourselves, and tally it up saying what everyone owes. Crickets. I remind everyone that they were the ones who ordered this giant mountain of food in the first place, half of which is going to go to waste. To prevent awkwardness, my mother-in-law grabs the bill and runs off, leaving my credit card to go and pay it. My wife prevents me from stopping her and causing a scene. I quietly lay into the 3 deadbeats at the table for letting an elderly woman on a fixed income pay $200 plus bill for her own birthday dinner. I lose it and call them fricking moochers. And whoa, suddenly there's that scene that everyone was working so hard to prevent, with them screaming at me and me screaming back. The restaurant owners understandably intervened and tossed us all out. I go back in and apologize and explain what happened. The restaurant, to their credit, knock 40% off the bill out of nothing more than kindness. Salo Salo Grill in Las Vegas get amongst it, and they cancel the charge on my mother-in-law's card, and I pick up the rest, which was still quite a bit, but I felt a lot better about it. Again, maybe these other people had particular economic difficulties, but I can't imagine ever doing this to someone. What a bunch of cheapskates. My aunt and uncle once brought me out to eat with my cousins. We went to McDonald's and ordered 1 hamburger from the dollar menu and split it 3 ways with my cousins.
That would make me more hungry than I started out.
You were supposed to fight your cousins to the death for the right to consume the entire hamburger. My dad is a physics professor at a university, which if you know of this breed of humans, none of this might surprise you. He, and I'll swear to all that's sacred, goes to the cafeteria on campus and makes a meal out of the free condiments. Mexican-style chip salsa, chopped onion packets, crackers, etc. Then he'll call me to brag about it. Another one he does, he found a store that sells expired food for a ridiculously low price. He said he spent $20 and now has microwavable popcorn for life. My dad never buys new tires, he buys used ones that the shop keeps when people replace them. He gets the tires for super cheap after negotiating them for like $15 to $20. The best part is that he avoids driving to not waste gas so much that the tires never actually wear out, they just rot. When he feels like splurging, he'll buy a pork shoulder, which is a lot of meat for $7 to $10. He cuts off all the meat and grinds it along with free condiments from a cafeteria into a cylinder shape that he wraps with shopping bags from a store. Then he freezes it. When he wants some, he slices some pieces off like patties and sautés them, in its own oil, of course. This will last him months. One time he called me while I was cooking. He asked me what I was making and I said that I was cooking spaghetti. He said that spaghettis are about 3 times the price per mass as rice and throwing away my money. He doesn't use toilet paper, just water, which I suppose is actually cleaner anyway.
Actually, using water to wash your post-crappy butt is a very common method throughout the world, especially in poorer countries where the people don't have enough to obtain or rather spend resources on other things than toilet paper. I'm sure there are many methods. The one I have used when overseas is follows. You crap while hovering and keep the butt cheeks apart. This reduces the crap-to-skin contact. Also, hemorrhoids. Then you get a little bucket or a large cup and use it to run water down your butt crack while bent forward. If you can, lather up your hands with soap and use your fingers. Rinse, and then wash your hands. My daily routine is set so that I shower after my morning craps anyway, and it works out fine. This method avoids the use of paper, and your butt is cleaner than with toilet paper. It has been pointed out to me that crap can get stuck under your nails, but you keep your fingernails short and clean when using this method.
I had a bunch of cheap Bic pens when I worked as a server at Applebee's. I left one with the table so they could sign the receipt. I watched the dad sign it, get up, start walking away with his family, then turn around 6 feet later, go back to the table and pocket my pen.
My 10th birthday present from my grandmother was a single expired McDonald's coupon. Are they the Dursleys?
My best friend in middle school wanted to go to Outback Steakhouse for his birthday, so his parents and 4 friends loaded up and drove the 45 minutes. We all ordered our food, and an order was placed for an appetizer of cheese fries that we would all share. The birthday boy goes first and gets a huge freaking portion, literally 2/3 of the cheese fries, and makes sure to take all the cheese with it. All that was left were the bare remnants. No big deal. I'm cool, it's free food anyway. When the time to pay comes, the dad asks me and the other kids for $20 each. I ask why, and he says, well, for your portion of the appetizer, your food, your drink, and for the birthday boy's food as well. I flat out refuse, and he threatens that maybe you should call your mum to drive 45 minutes to pick you up. I was 14 at the time. I can't even imagine myself accepting money from a child, never mind straight up forcing them to pay for their meal plus part of someone else's. That's ridiculous. I mean, this way, the parents aren't even paying for their own child's birthday meal. Classy. Work dinner party. There are about 25 of us coming. Potluck. The co-worker says, I'll bring the wine. She brings 4 open bottles, each between 1/3 and 2/3 full. My stepdad keeps all the toilet paper in his room. We have 2 bathrooms, and every time the toilet paper runs out in my bathroom, I have to ask for a new roll, which then goes on to 20 minutes of getting yelled at that I'm wasting paper. I feel like I have to apologize for pooping. Even if I try to use the other bathroom, I get yelled at for using their bathroom when I have my own. I had a friend in college who never spent more than $10 a week on food, because she knew when and where all the events with free food were on campus. I aspire to have that level of commitment. I mean, I call that frugal, not cheap. You're paying a buttload for tuition and other expenses. Part of these free meals comes from tuition money, so it's not really free, it's more like prepaid. In college, that's not just cheap, that's smart. What is something that you're never fricking buying again? Glass furniture. I had a glass desk from IKEA for about 2 years, and one morning while I was sleeping, it spontaneously exploded. There was no one piece of it left that was larger than my thumbnail, and it took days to clean up. Apparently that can happen with tempered glass. Tension builds up due to temperature changes, and it just shatters. We had a low-grade earthquake where I live. The glass table shattered 3 days later. Fricking home warranty. I bought a house that had just hit 10 years and got all of the original appliances. Oh, the appliances are covered, they said, but only if you buy a home warranty. Sure, it only lasts a year, but these things might break in that year. It's only $500, better safe than sorry. Turns out crap does break. The water heater had a problem, the fridge had a problem, none of it caught by inspection. I go to the warranty people and it's $75 for someone to evaluate it. Cool, I think. Cheaper than buying new stuff. Then everything gets denied. The most random F reasons are given to me. I argue, I'm told that that's what the inspectors said. I get the transcripts and guess what? All of their inspectors said that this should be covered. The warranty company lied to me. I threw the lies in their face and I get back, well, it doesn't matter, it still isn't covered. One of the dudes, a plumber I later had come back to help, said these companies never cover anything. Their reason on the water heater? Rust on the unit. He told them the rust didn't cause the problem and was normal. To them, any potential problem is reason for denial. Got a dent in a unit? Denied. Got a scratch? Denied. Here's the real crap part of it though. This was all in my first 30 days living there. Like any reasonable person, I thought I could just call up and cancel and get some, or maybe any, of my money back. You know what the woman told me on the phone? It's not legal to return a home warranty in the first year. We're not talking PMI or fire insurance or disaster crap or whatever. This was just a warranty on things like appliances, and can apply to things like structure. I told the woman she worked for crooks and hung up. So if you're buying a house and they want $500 to $600 to insure your home for a year, do what my plumber said. Save your money and do the repairs yourself. I'm still mad about it and it's been like 3 years. Frick.
Cheese, in massive quotation marks, from the dollar store.
Oh god, what would that even be made out of? Low-density plastic? I wish I could contact the person who wrote this 8 years ago. A General Electric's made exclusively for Walmart $50 vacuum. I bought a used Kirby from eBay and we threw the GE over the balcony and killed it Office Space style. Bacon-flavored popcorn. It basically made my entire house smell like sweaty butt. I'm not kidding, it lingered for days. It tasted dreadful too. Allow me to give you my recipe for the tastiest popcorn ever. Trademarked. Microwaved bacon popcorn is gross and inedible. Instead, make some bacon and save the grease. The next time you want delicious popcorn, put 3 to 4 tablespoons of bacon grease in the bottom of a large cooking pot. Apply medium-high heat. When the grease is all melted, add about half a cup of popcorn kernels, enough to mostly cover the bottom of the pan, and put the lid on. Shake somewhat vigorously until the popcorn is no longer popping quickly. Immediately pour delicious popcorn into another container, as it will scorch very quickly if you don't. Depending on the saltiness of your bacon, you may want to add salt, but probably not. Enjoy! I'll keep this short and sweet. I was very thirsty one night shift and thought it would be a good idea to buy 1 liter of sugar-free aloe water. After guzzling the entire thing, I felt quite refreshed. I downed a pita bread and my lunch was complete. Fast forward an hour later and I started to feel a rumbling in my stomach and the urge to pass gas. I decided to hold my toot in at the time and visit the closest washroom. At that very moment, I emptied my entire stomach contents and more into the toilet in the most violent butt explosion of my life. For the remaining 4 hours of my shift, everything coming out of my butt was liquid. I learned that particular aloe water was a very close cousin of the sugar-free gummy bears. 10 out of 10 will not buy sugar-free aloe water again. Food from that shady-as-frick Chinese food cart next to my building. Something I've said 4 or 5 times already. Oh. Mate, the rule with takeaway food is the dodgier the joint looks, the better the food. Hell, my local Indian joint has perpetual low-lying smoke from all the curries, and the Chinese joint has burnt down 3 times. Both of them do super good takeaway food. That only applies to ethnic food though. Your local chippy shop needs to be squeaky clean. Sea monkeys. They're not tiny humanoids, and their construction skills leave much to be desired. Tyrannizing them is not very rewarding. All they did in response to my oppressive taxation and restrictive curfews was die and turn the water brown. A bicycle from Walmart.
Cheap bikes are really expensive to fix.
What's the cheapest bike that's worth it, I wonder? A used bike that was expensive when it was new. Good bikes last fricking forever, if you take care of them. My bike was built 30 years ago and it's 10 times better than the piece of crap I used to ride. A brand new $300 folding bike. If you buy a folding bike, you should just assume that it's equal quality to a non-folder that costs half of that. So you probably got the quality of a $150 bike. I honestly wouldn't trust a folder that costs less than $600. Actually, I wouldn't trust a folder that wasn't made by a major company. An inkjet printer. I've probably bought more than a dozen of them over the years, and while they produce outstanding color out of the box, unless you're printing full-on color on a regular basis, like every day, then you're going to get clogs and failures. And don't even get me started on the whole,
you're out of yellow ink, so you can't scan anything now,
with the all-in-ones. About 2 years ago, I bought a Brother MFC 9340 CDW laser printer for my mother, and a few months later I bought the same printer for myself. No more clogged ink, duplex printing that doesn't even saturate the paper, consistent print quality, wider variety of paper to choose from, and overall cheaper than an inkjet. I'm never going back. That bloody Loot Crate crap. I only brought it once when I thought the stuff was alright, but it really teased me off now watching YouTubers continually opening crates and then acting like they're so glad that they got a fricking fridge magnet. My How to Learn Buddha's Palm booklet. Clothes from Groupon. Almost anything from Groupon. My last few experiences have been pretty bad. When Groupon was new, you could get some great deals, but now it's spa, crap Chinese products, crappy restaurants, rinse and repeat. Yeah, it might have been a legit enterprise once, but I think by now most business owners have realized that the sorts of people who use coupon deals rarely become repeat customers. They'll come in holding that voucher in front of them like a shield against having to pay full price, grab as many extras as they can, steal your pens and leave never to return. Signed, bitter former restaurant manager who never got tipped by coupon users. We had a buddy named Dave who once brought over some Klondike bars for a game night and left the remainders in the fridge. When he came back a week later, he was horrified and livid that his Klondike bars, which were left in the fridge of 3 bachelors, had been eaten without his permission. He made such a stink about it that us 3 guys living there, as a prank, filled the freezer to the brim with Klondike bars. We ate and ate them, but the stock never depleted. Some moron would keep the joke going by buying enough Klondike bars to fill it back to full. And when you're young and a cheapskate, you'll eat a Klondike bar before going to find real food. Don't get me wrong, ice cream and chocolate are great, but man, I could go my whole life without eating another Klondike bar, and that was already 15 years ago. Frickin' Dave, man. A frickin' sleep number mattress. Piece of crap is like sleeping on an air mattress, and after a little while the sides lose their integrity, so the only comfortable spot becomes broken down. Forked out a lot of cash for that stupid mattress. The only one who seemed to like it was the cat. Anything from Finish Line. A couple of years ago, I needed a new pair of shoes. Luckily, I had a Finish Line gift card. I'd never shopped there before, but I'd save money with the gift card, so I walk in and buy a pair of shoes. The cashier asks if I'd like coupons sent to me in the mail. I figure, sure, why not? So I wrote down my address and everything. Got my shoes, everything's cool. Fast forward to 7 months later, I have a $60 charge on my bank account from Sports Illust. Something like that, it resembled Sports Illustrated. So, being confused, I call Sports Illustrated and tell them I was being charged for subscribing, even though I could give less of a crap about sports. The man basically tells me, sorry about that, I don't know how that could happen. The charges should be reversed within 3 days. I figured, alright, this crap's finally over. Fast forward 2 weeks later and I realize that the charge has not been reversed whatsoever. I decide that I'm going to call back again after work and talk to them about it yet again. So after work, I check my bank account one last time to see if it was reversed. Not only was it not reversed, but I had another charge that said something like Sports Illustrated Kids, for another $60. So basically, after he told me the charges would be reversed after 3 days, they weren't after 2 weeks, and then they had the big brass ones to charge me yet again. This time I was teed off and called immediately. The tone in the lady's voice seemed like she'd been dealing with this all day or something. She sighed and said, "Have you purchased anything from Finish Line recently?" And I had to think about it, and then it hit me that I did about 7 months ago. And I said, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "Because this has been a real problem with everyone who purchased from Finish Line. I'll have the charges reversed this time, I really will." And after the phone call, I called the bank to tell them about the whole thing. Everything was refunded back to me in the end, but after dealing with that crap, I'm never buying from Finish Line again. Who the frick do you think you are just subscribing everyone to Sports Illustrated unwillingly? I don't even give a crap about sports. I just wanted to buy a simple pair of shoes and that's it. In conclusion, Finish Line signed me up for Sports Illustrated without my permission. I just wanted to buy a pair of shoes. Tried reversing the charges, but instead they subscribed me twice. I had to call the bank to actually fix it. Don't shop at Finish Line. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Those pink, frosted animal crackers. Good as all heck, but I ate way too many when I was younger, and I still get sick even to this day when I think about it. I feel like everyone has that one food that they ruined for themselves as a child. For me, it was a Mexican candy called Lucas. I ate it once when I was extremely sick, and I haven't been able to stomach it since. Which is sad because I remember loving it for a couple of hours. At least until I threw it all up. I will never go with my current ISP fricking ever again if I have the option. The amount of bullcrap I've had to deal with is just insane. First, they brought our previous ISP. I called to cancel the phone line we got for free, along with a free router. The new ISP tried to charge for it, but they say they'll of course remove it. I got a confirmation letter. Get another one. In the end, I got one letter every day for over 3 weeks confirming the exact same thing. Still shows up on my bill. Got charged for TV. It's included in my rent. I call them and they said, sure, we'll of course remove it. It shows up on my next bill. I call again and they claim that the bill was printed before my call. Just pay less than what it says on the bill. Next month, it's still there. They claim the exact same thing, printed before I called. I called the rep on his bullcrap, and all he does is cough and ask if there's anything else I need help with. I mildly lose my crap at this point, but I finally get rid of the extra charge on the next bill. This was all in the span of 3 months. Never again if I have the option. The previous ISP worked flawlessly for over a year. What infuriates me the most is that this is most likely their modus operandi, counting on people not reading too closely what they're getting charged for. Granted, they're reasonably priced at 100 megabits a second for an equivalent of $24 a month, but based on their customer service and general inability to do even the simplest of tasks without several weeks of issues, I'll go with another one next time. What? It's not like an ISP to make every little transaction a nightmare. They instantly and immediately fix your options and give you your money right away, like travel insurance and substance-using roommates who owe you rent. A frozen gluten-free pizza. £3 for a large nacho with a pinch of cheese on it. What a load of crap. Third-party extended warranty. I bought our first family car a few months after getting married. A 5-year-old Dodge Magnum with 50k on the odometer. They kinda just threw the warranty in and I didn't realize it until I was signing papers and I got to the extended warranty page. Asked what the frick this was and the salesman ended up getting me to pay for it. It's only $1,200, pretty cheap peace of mind, right? Right. I'm a family man now. I hate to have any pesky repairs get in my way. I never used it, needed tie rods on one time, but they were considered a wear item, so it was out of my own pocket. Instead of the extended warranty, do your research, buy cars that don't have overcomplicated parts that break down or require expensive services. I don't buy anything with a timing belt anymore, only chains. Do your maintenance the way your manual says and consider using the severe schedule. Join a forum for your particular car. If the thingamajig shakes when you turn the doohickey, you can bet someone else's thingamajig had shaken before, so look it up. Most of all, this is what you keep an emergency fund for. If you're maintaining your vehicle properly, things shouldn't break, but if they do, have some money tucked away for emergency repairs. Any Steam game before it goes on sale. A cheap vacuum. I have 2 dogs and vacuumed with it the day before I brought a new one. Vacuumed with the new one, Shark Rotator Professional for those wondering, and literally filled 2 trash bags with missed pet hair, having just vacuumed the day before. Rubbers. I'm married and had a vasectomy. I was in the same boat with 2 kids already. Evidently, the US military gives crappy vasectomies. After the 3rd kid, my wife got fixed. Third-party controllers. They only ever last all of a week or 2 before something goes wrong. As fun as they are, those cheap remote control helicopters are probably the most frustrating things to try and control. I think I've owned 3 and they've all broken within 1 week of buying. Beats by Dr. Dre. Why didn't I listen to what everyone told me? Ben & Jerry's changed the Heath bars that they use to some tasteless, disgusting hippie crap about a year ago. I get that they're all about conservation and all, but they screwed up my absolute favorite go-to ice cream of all time. I was in Vermont when they invented Heath Bar Crunch about 25 or 30 years ago, and they were giving it out as samples. I fell in love right then and there, but they've wronged me and cut me deep. Never again, unless I hear they go back to the old Heath bars. Off-brand saran wrap or cling film. It tears if you look at it wrong and won't stick to itself on wraparound. Bullcrap in a box. Wooden tiki torches. They get messed up after 1 season outside in the elements, and half of them come crooked and crack when you put them in the ground. I invested in some nice metal and glass ones. 1-ply toilet paper. I bought a big package on accident once and I'll never do that again. My finger popped through that wispy garbage the first time I used it, and I eventually was using ridiculously thick wads of paper to keep myself safe. Toilet paper is one of those products where it's always best to pay more for the good stuff. An engagement ring. The Dyson Ball Vacuum. Man, is that thing named wrong. I couldn't walk for 3 days after using it. I was about to say, mine works great and is so easy to push, and then I caught on. Girly crap. Give me man razors, man deodorant, man shower gel, man everything. Half the price and lasts way longer than crappy girl products. Okay, apparently I'm worse than Margaret Thatcher because I said this. Relax. If you want to use girly products, go ahead. If you want to use men's products, go ahead. I personally find men's antiperspirant, Rexona, to be my choice of deodorant because I'm very active and work outside. Every brand of men's razors have lasted longer than my women's ones. My men's work boots last amazingly better and are sturdier than any woman's work boots I've had in the past. That's my personal experience anyway. Hulu subscription. I can't stand paying for a service and still having to watch through commercials. What? Look, I was never going to buy that service anyway because it just seemed so inherently crap, but that is some complete garbage compared to the other services on offer. Not sure if it's changed in the years since that comment was written, though. Size 46 and above pants. Not a product quality thing, just a quality of life thing. Cigarettes. Full year clean, let's go. A DVD rewinder. Fricking useless. I remember when Blockbuster was first introducing DVDs, and my dad got a notice that he failed to rewind his disc before returning it to the store. Some people are just dumb, he said, but don't threaten me with a fine because of your own stupidity. Any Ubisoft product available for pre-purchase. Dude, any video game for pre-order. It's been a terrible stretch. A Lenovo laptop from India. I brought a Y500 from them, and it was the worst experience ever. I know most people think the company is excellent, but their after-sales service is simply awful. 2 days after delivery, I found that the touchpad wouldn't work properly. After repeatedly emailing them, asking for repair centers, a repair tech, or any number of things, I was told that I had applied for a replacement too late, since I'd bypassed the 1-week replacement limit. I asked them again about repairing the laptop, and they sent over a technician who knew less than I did about laptops. He left the house having spoiled the screen by scratching it with a screwdriver and twisting the fan blade so that the laptop wouldn't start anymore. With infinite patience, I called the repair center and I asked for a repair tech to fix the things the previous guy had done wrong. They made excuses for days and days, doing absolutely nothing. If you think Comcast is bad, this was far worse. I was misquoted saying, "The issue has been fixed," and they closed the case number, telling me I'd have to go through the entire process again. I was given a Lenovo official help center number. That's when I learned the guys I was speaking to was simply a small repair shop that Lenovo had contracted all their Bombay customers to. After waiting on the Lenovo helpline for 15 minutes, listening to crappy elevator music, I was told that the help center was inactive and that I should call up another number. The very same fricking number that belonged to the repair shop. I fricking lost it. The worst part is, in India, it's not possible to sue a company and expect a speedy resolution. All this was happening a few weeks before my exams, and I had a comp sci project due for submission. In the end, I had to give up this new, almost never used laptop to a repair shop that I actually trusted. Their service was far better than anything Lenovo had ever offered me so far, even if it was paid. I ended up using my old HP DV6000 for my exams. I managed to submit the project on time, but seriously, F Lenovo. In conclusion, frick Lenovo for getting me stuck in a feedback loop. A laptop without fans so strong that they can at least ensure that the darn thing doesn't overheat after an hour, unless I purchase another gosh darn ventilation pad for it. Cheap or used tires, a cheap mattress, bottom shelf alcohol. For the alcohol, I generally mean that if I'm getting a drink at the bar, I don't mind spending an extra $1 or $2 for name brand instead of watered-down rubbing alcohol. Yes, I believe the hangover is worse with cheap spirits. Also, if you can't afford a ride home, you can't afford to go out drinking. For tires, I agree that if you have an old beater, you shouldn't be spending thousands on tires. However, I've gotten screwed over a few times with used tires that seemed like an excellent deal, only to be replaced in 10,000 miles. I put a pair of Toyo MTs on my old truck and they lasted me longer than the truck and still looked new after 50,000 miles. Plus, I had one punctured from an accident and it was replaced for free because I spent an extra $20 for that service up front. I can't stand seeing new sports cars that someone spent good money on and they won't spend more than $300 on tires. Also, everyone's saying if it separates you from the ground, this is exactly what I mean. As a closer, gas barbecues. If you only grill a few times a year, go ahead and spend under $500 on one. Just don't be upset when you can't get parts and have to replace the whole thing within 5 years. If you're a barbecue enthusiast that loves grilling for friends and family 5 times a week, spend $4,000 on a Twin Eagles or Lynx. It'll be the last grill you ever buy and sear a steak that would make Ramsay's mouth water. Yes, a $150 Weber charcoal kettle is an amazing grill that will last forever, but cooking 5 times a week on charcoal and needing more cooking area with different temperatures gets old real quick. Plus, a big green egg will smoke any Weber. I've spent the last 7 years designing outdoor kitchens and selling grills while having a private barbecue chef on staff. I think I'm just a bit more of a snob when it comes to my food. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.